Pole in the GT4s. The GT4 battle is absolutely epic. It looked like Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton were going to have a very comfortable GT4 win, but has their qualifying result affected that? Martin, what do you think?
I think 37.5 points ahead, Al, is, as you say, enough maybe to put your mind at rest. But when you have issues in qualifying, suddenly all the nerves are jangly. You can see the 55 car there of Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton, the HHC Team Ginetta, the blue and white machine right in the middle of your screen. And that car, yeah, a little bit of an issue in qualifying, but it's all in one piece. They're fourth on the grid. It shouldn't, hopefully, derail them. But in endurance racing, and with a 2-hour race with different cars of different classes and at different speeds, things can happen that are outside of your control, and that's what everybody's nerves will be jangling about. John Minshaw, as you could clearly hear when I was talking to him, really doesn't want to talk about this. He just wants to get in the car, shut the door, put his helmet on and focus on driving the race. And that's the driver's happy place, in the car, away from the pressure. Then the only pressure is on himself, from himself, to perform and just to do a good job. He knows he's got a great hot shoe in Phil Keane. You know, that is a proper Pro-Am championship pairing. And so whatever happens between himself and the Team Parker Bentley, the number 31 car that's coming out of the pit lane now, you know, that's, neither of them want to win it with the other one being fired off. Neither of them want to be handed it on a plate. It has been a titanic battle all the way through. The Lamborghini started the season fantastically at Alton Park with victory. And that is John Minshaw's home track, his happy place, close to home, up in the northeast of England. And they were only overhauled last time out as Bentley claimed victory at Brands Hatch. So Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris have the championship lead, 10.5 points ahead of John Minshaw and Phil Keane. And it is down to them, Liam Griffin, Sam Tordorf, Derek Johnson and Johnny Adam, who start on pole ahead of John Barnes and Mark Farmer. They can't win the championship now. There aren't enough points left on offer today. So it is down to a 2-horse race. It's Bentley, Lamborghini. And basically, if either of them win the race, then predominantly that clinches the championship. Behind that, if they're not first, then suddenly the bonus that they've got of 10.5 points stays with Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris in the Bentley, and Minshaw and Keane have to outperform them in the race. So that's the situation in GT3. GT4, again, the championship is a 2-horse race. The HHC Ginetta team, Stuart Middleton, Will Tregurtha, with a decent advantage, 25 points over Alex Reed and David Pittard for Lannan Racing, also in a Ginetta GT4 car. And they, again, are the only teams in. Adam Ballum, Adam McKay can't get there. Will Phillips and Jan Yonk, unfortunately, fourth in the championship. Their team not able to make it here with either the GT4 car for Will and Jan or their GT3 car. So no Macmillan Racing AMR this weekend to round out the championship. So Will Phillips is here. He's racing with former Macmillan driver Matty Graham in an In2 Racing McLaren. But unfortunately, they're not here to defend that 4th place in the championship. The series organizer, Stefan Rattel, he's done a good job with the weather. He's with Al.
I am standing here with Stefan Rattel. Stefan, what a weekend this is turning out to be. Donington Decider.
Yeah, a good conclusion for a great season. It's a very nice event because the weather was very nice, yeah. And we have a very tight competition with 2 very prestigious manufacturers, Bentley and Lamborghini, that can win this event and the championship title. We have a very good turn up of lots of spectators and a fantastic grid. So yes, a great weekend.
This is also a very special year as well. 25 years with SRO.
Yeah, 25 years of promoting GT racing in the UK and in many other places around the world. So no, it's been a great
How much
journey.
have you seen it change over the years?
I mean, we built it up from scratch, so it's not that it changed, it was recreated, you know. When we started in the mid-90s, GT cars had not turned a wheel in competition since for 20 years. So we revived it and then developed it.
And developed more and more and more. And like you say, you just have to look around and see the spectators that are here and the spectators at home. It's so popular.
No, it is, and it's popular around the planet. You know, we have this same weekend, the promoter of the championship who takes care of it, Benjamin, on a daily basis, is not here because he's also promoting our new GT championship in Asia, the Blancpain GT Series Asia, and we have a race in Shanghai at the moment. So, you know, the GT planet never stops.
Fantastic. And I'm not allowed to ask you specifically your thoughts on the race, but if I was allowed?
No, but I have no thoughts. So the best wins, and it's our religion in motorsport.
Yeah. Fantastic. Enjoy the race.
Oh, yeah, I will. I always watch my race. Thank you. Bye.
I've been covering GT racing alongside Stefan Rattel for many, many years. British GT Championship, FIA GT Championship back to the beginning of the century and before that. And of course, Stefan, part of the BPR organisation, Patrick Peter, Jürgen Bart and Stefan Rattel, who brought GT racing really back into the foreground. The BPR series that pitted the long-tail McLaren F1 GTR against Ferrari F40s and all of that. You remember all of that from the late 90s? Ask your father. So he's been in at ground zero for a long, long time, organising championships in the UK, as he says, national championships in France. Of course, he organises the Blancpain series in Europe, Blancpain Asia, and the FIA GT Championship, FIA GT1 World Championship. He has been organising successfully GT racing for many, many years. And I was having this conversation yesterday and last weekend in Austin, Texas. It is a time for sports car racing and GT racing that has never seen any historical parallel to this. There are more sports cars, GT racing and prototype racing cars on grids at any weekend than there have ever been in history. There has never been so much racing, so much variety of racing. LMP1, LMP2, LMP3, GTE, GT3, GT4, just phenomenal rising time of sports car racing. Let's get back down to the grid. Al is with John Barnes.
Yep, I'm down here with John Barnes, TF Sports. Firstly, congratulations, your first pole position. That must feel pretty good.
Yeah, it does. This is my fourth season of racing in British GT now, and there's a big gap between the first year in 2008 and my first year back, which was 2015. But yeah, the first pole in British GT, so really pleased with how everything went yesterday. Car's been fantastic all weekend, so thanks to TF Sport for that. And yeah, looking forward to a good race today.
And the car really has been on pace, and it's good around Donington, isn't it?
It certainly seems to be. Yeah, I don't think we were expecting to be as quick as we have been so far, but if that continues into the race, then that's great from our point of view. A
pretty good result for both as well. TF Sport to lock out the front row.
Yeah, so we did that earlier in the year at Rockingham, and that was really unexpected. And probably the same again here this weekend, so really pleased with how it's gone.
I'm going to try and get in with your teammates. Mark, how are you doing down here? Let's have a chat. Our poleman, Mark. Strategy then into that first corner.
Just get my head down and go. Very simple.
Your car, we just were chatting about the fact that it does have an awful lot of pace here. Was that expected?
Not really. I think we've had a good balance of performance here. Probably the best we've had all season. We've really been struggling with weight all season. So that's really helped us. And the car setup, we found a car setup really, really quickly, and it's just worked for us. So we were quick out of the blocks. So it was really good, really easy to drive.
And how much of the gloves are off, seeing as you're sitting next to another TF Sports and 2016 champions?
Always want to beat your teammate.
Good. Best of luck into that first corner then.
Mark Farmer, one of two cars run by Tom Ferrier on the front row of the grid, because Tom's TF Sport team have locked out the front row with Aston Martin. So the second car on the grid, bears number 1. Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam, last year's champions. Now they'll wave goodbye to that title here today. They can't win it, but the Anglo-Scottish pairing, Johnny Adam, of course, Aston Martin factory driver who so dramatically won the GTE class at Le Mans on the very last lap, taking the lead to win it at Le Mans on the last lap. Johnny Adam, multiple British champion. He's had 2 titles under his belt. Should have been a 3rd. He, a couple of seasons ago, when he was in the Beechstein car with Andrew Howard, unfortunately had one of his race point scores deducted, and so as a result Andrew was a champion on his own, but everybody understands that they drove the car all season long together. So Johnny Adam, who I can see from my window meandering off down the grid to chat to friends and family, is on the outside of the front row of the grid. Now our championship contenders are on row 2. In the 31 Bentley is Rick Parfitt, alongside is Seb Morris.
Rick Parfitt Jr. is in the car, so I'm standing here with Seb Morris, who will be in afterwards. So you are 10.5 ahead, however you have got this 20-second pit stop penalty. How much pressure does that add?
Not a lot really. We've had a good qualifying in terms of the Astons being ahead of the Lambo. That was quite important because if they finish 3rd, we only have to finish something like 6th. So we need these Astons to just go, they're our best friend today, they need to go as fast as they can and keep that Lambo in 3rd, and we should be able to do the rest.
You guys have proven over the year that in the more enduro races you're very strong.
Yes, we are. The car's great on its tyres, but better than the Lamborghini and the Astons, so we should be fine today. Rick's not really feeling any pressure, so am I. We are the underdogs, and sometimes the underdog prevails.
You're certainly very, very calm. When I spoke to Richard earlier, he's also very calm, but feeling quite emotional.
Yeah, he's a tiny bit emotional, but that's just him. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but he's a lot more chilled out than what he would have been this time last year.
That is very, very true. And if you guys were to win, he would be the first GT4 and GT3 winner.
Yes, indeed, it'd be a big day for him, but I've tried not to remind him about any of this stuff. He just needs to go and just put his foot down.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, Seb, best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, Seb is absolutely right. If the Aston Martins run away, then the further the Lamborghini drops down, the tougher their task becomes. They need to outscore that Aston Martin duo by a significant amount. There's Richard Neary in the car, and Adam Christodoulou alongside him, factory AMG driver who's been brought in as Martin Short. Not quite sure whether Martin Short's actually hung up his helmet. He was racing one of his old Le Mans cars at Spa a couple of weekends ago, so he's still got that racing in him, but running the Roll Centre Racing team that looks after this 88 Mercedes, no longer co-driving, brought Adam Christodoulou in to help them sort out the car and also to help Richard Neary. So our GT3 field has got the front row of the grid firmly locked down, but the GT4 category also has its own championship battle. GT3, GT4, what's the difference? Well, essentially, let's take a look here at the pole sitters, the Academy Motorsport Aston Martin GT4. The basic body shell is predominantly the same, but it's more developed as a GT3 car than as a GT4 car. The GT4 car is closer to road trim. Don't be mistaken that it's a road car. It's not. But let's hear from Matt Nicol-Jones at Academy Motorsport.
Will Moore is in the car, so I'm here with Matt Nicol-Jones. Matt, your second pole in the row. First of all, congratulations on that. But, however, in Brands Hatch, you guys had drive shaft issues. So, how are you feeling now? Presumably the car is all ready and you're feeling confident?
Yeah, very confident. Will did a fantastic job yesterday, and I just had to go do a few circles just to bring it in and get the pole. So for us, best place to start, but it's a long race. Very confident with the car. The issue that we had at Brands was very unusual. So that's all cured. That's all. We're not worried about that. It's still a race car, so anything can happen. But you know, from here we've got some really sensible guys around us. So I think you know, it's a 2-hour race. We'll see. We'll see.
Good pace yesterday. What is it about Donington that's so good for you?
I don't know. I think notoriously the Aston's always gone well here. So you know, we were here 2 years ago with 2 cars, and you know, we did very well there. We were running P1 and 2. You know, so I'm quietly confident for this, providing we don't have any issues. It's still racing, so anything can happen, obviously. But this little wagon has done a great job for us. So and Will's been fantastic all year. So he's just probably going to leave it with me through the last hour. And unfortunately, I'm dying a bit of man flu at the moment. So yeah, so I'll be all right, I'm sure. Just the sniffles. Yeah.
We won't discuss man flu. Matt, thank you. Best of luck.
Man flu, as if. He's obviously struggling with a very serious infection indeed, but they are on pole position, and that tends to bring a little smile even to the snuffliest of racing drivers. Academy Motorsport, they're Aston Martin pole sitters in the GT4 category, and again, the cars look predominantly similar, but if you look at the Astons on the front row of the grid when they're coming towards you, you'll see the most enormous rear wing. It basically looks like you could go to sleep on it. The GT4 cars, much less endowed with downforce. They've got a less sophisticated aerodynamic package. The GT3 Aston Martin, for instance, has got a V12 engine, and there's a V8 in the GT4 car. So there are big differences between the two, and the GT3s and the GT4s will be lapping at very different speeds. Well, let's get down to our championship leaders. HHC Motorsport, Stuart Middleton is with Al.
I am here with the current GT4 leaders. A rather healthy lead you have, Stuart, but presumably you were hoping for slightly more in qualifying yesterday?
Yeah, could have maybe done with a little bit more pace, but again, this isn't really a circuit. The Ginnetta's the fastest round, we think, so considering that, I think we've done pretty well. Fastest Ginetta on track, so yeah, we're ahead of our main rivals, so that's all that matters really. So yeah.
You have never actually come lower than P4, I believe, all year, and I think as long as you're P6 or above, you're pretty comfy, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. It's pretty much guaranteed as long as we're finished in front of Lannan to get the championship. So, yeah, we just got to try and be as cool as we can and, get it home. And
is Will cool as he can be in there?
I think so, yeah. He's confident, so, yeah, let's see what we can do here.
Will, Stuart, kick butt.
Yeah, thank you.
You come to me mid-biscuit. That was rather curtailed there by the clear the grid buzzer. Well, the HHC Motorsport team leading the GT4 category, being chased by one car in their class, Lannan Racing. And so the battle between the two Ginettas will continue through the race, but they do have a near 40-point advantage. So at the moment, Lannan Racing with a lot of work to do. But again, we talked about this, and we'll talk about this throughout the 2 hours. Not always in motor racing is your destiny in your own hands. Often accidents that are nothing to do with you can come and find you. A bit of debris, all sorts of things can happen. So hopefully we'll have a good, clean race. Stunningly clear morning this morning. It's a little hazy cloud overhead, but nothing that is going to bring rain, I don't think. So as we see the cars waved off on the final formation lap, we are ready to go racing here at Donington Park. GT3 field departs. The dark grey Aston Martin is the pole sitter in the GT4 class. The Academy Motorsport number 62 car started by Will Moore. The way that the championship works in these longer races is that the gentleman driver, the AM in the Pro-Am lineup, starts. So it is Mark Farmer on pole position ahead of Derek Johnston. John Minshaw and Rick Parfitt are on row 2 of the grids. There are championship contenders. Then Minshaw's teammate Liam Griffin ahead of Richard Neary. Ian Loggy starts 7th in the second of the Bentleys, ahead of the Nismo GT3. Now that's not a championship registered car, but it is out here anyway. In 10th place is our GT4 pole sitter, and we heard from Matt Nicol-Jones that Will Moore will be starting that car. So he'll be in 10th. Alongside him will be the car of Richard Williams, and that Toyota GT86, again, not a full GT4 car, so it's in an invitational class. So behind them, Graham Johnson, the outgoing champion, with Will Jagurtha, the championship leader in GT4. Andrew Watson and David Patterson start ahead of Akil Rapinda, and Alex Reed and David Pittard in the 51 Lannan Racing car, white and red. They are the championship challengers. Further back on the grid than Jagurtha and Middleton, and with a points deficit to catch. Will Phillips and Marcus Hogarth ahead of Adam Ballon and Nick Jones. Then Ala Walewska and Jacob Matheson ahead of Richard Taffender in the Nissan, and Abby Eaton, Chris Milford and Tim Eakin are on the back row of the grid. The Eakin-Fletcher Nissan, rebuilt overnight by Bob Neville's RJN team after a big crash in qualifying. They didn't set qualifying time, but they will start from the back of the grid. The car's a little bent, well, bodywork-wise, but otherwise ready to go. So 31 Bentley, your championship leader. Rick Parfitt at the wheel. Rick Parfitt, by the way, 3 years ago, the GT4 champion in British GT. Nobody has ever won the title in both classes. So he could be the first man to do that. And he is the championship leader. Alongside him in the green and red Lamborghini is John Minshaw. That's your championship battle. Between the Aston Martins on the front row of the grid, let's hope they've got a plan for the first corner. The chrome blue and white car, that is the pole sitter, Mark Farmer. 2 hours, the Donington decider is underway as they rush down into the first corner. 3 wide, 4 wide behind, but it is Aston on Aston, and Derek Johnson makes contact with Mark Farmer into the first corner. Very quick start from John Minshaw, the green and red Lamborghini. There's smoke in the middle of the field. Contact between the Lamborghini, between the Bentley and the second Lamborghini. Minshaw's up to second. Up to 4th place is the blue Lamborghini of Liam Griffin. The Bentley in 5th position. Let's hope there was no contact. A puncture now or damage coming into that car later on in the race as a result of even the slightest rub could have a massive impact on the championship. Well, right now, an aggressive start from John Minshaw. He's behind, he knows that he needs to go out and win this. It's not coming to him. On board in the 55, this is Will Chagurtha in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta. And already, Mark Farmer, he was looking a little nervous before the race as well. The pole position man pulling away. There is the GT4 field, 501, the orange McLaren in 2nd place. We're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th in the class in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta with Will Chagurtha, but the lead in GT4 is with Will Moore. There is Rick Parfitt, he's all over the back of Liam Griffin. And the race leader coming round to complete the first lap, Mark Farmer, ahead of John Minshaw. All trouble at the hairpin, that's the Into Racing McLaren. And that is facing backwards. That's Will Phillips, the number 14 car. First drive ever in the McLaren. Hadn't done any testing, qualified it yesterday with Matty Graham. And that's his first time in the car. There you can see the Mercedes of Richard Neary, the 88 car. A little further back, Richard Neary in 7th place. For the battle now for 4th, 5th position, Matt Griffin and Rick Parfitt, 6 and 31. On board in the Bentley, there is the Lamborghini Huracan in front, the second of the Barwell cars. Now Matt Griffin doesn't have a part to play in the championship race in terms of potentially winning it, but if he can take points by being in front of the Bentley, then that all helps the Lamborghini of his teammate John Minshaw. Into the pits, by the way, has come that spinning McLaren. So Will Phillips, first lap in a McLaren in a race, and he is into the pit lane. And the reason he's in the McLaren this weekend is there is no Macmillan AMR, his regular GT4 drive. Winner's last time out, he and his teammate Jan Jonk. And there is Seb Morris bouncing up and down. Oh, in trouble, and Minshaw is off. Last year came to Donington Park as the championship leader, went off down the crane of curves, lost the race. This time he's gone off on the exit of McLean's. Now, did he have a left rear puncture or was he on the grass? Is that why the car was sat down? Past me and the start-finish line comes Mark Farmer. Derek Johnson is second. And there is Minshaw. He's in amongst the GT4 cars. Is he coming into the pits? Because that could be the end of their championship. No, it looks as though he feels the car is A-OK. He goes by now, and no sign of damage on it. So it does look as though that was just carrying a little too much speed for the tyres. Maybe the Lamborghini mid-engine with the engine behind the driver. It just balances the car a little better. Maybe takes longer to bring this Pirelli tyre in. Contact between 2 cars at the start. That was the 14 car of Will Phillips and 59 being examined by the stewards, and that's the Black Bull McLaren of Akhil Rabindra. So we'll see what happens with that. Looks like they got together, they were nose to tail on the grid. Looks like they got together at the start of the race. 14 car still in the pits and now has headed back out, so he's a lap down. Mark Farmer leading from Derek Johnson, Liam Griffin, I beg your pardon, in third place. And then there is the second place car, Liam Griffin. Oh, trouble for the 53 car, and that is Richard Taffender, who shares with Martin Plowman. He has backed it off very hard into the barriers on the exit of McLean's. You can see the Team Parker garage running the Bentley. Rick Parfitt in fourth place, Liam Griffin in third. There's the other of the Nissans, the 54 car that was crashed in qualifying. And here comes the Lamborghini. Well, coming across the line last time round, John Minshaw was in 10th place. Now he is clear of the GT4 field, so he's up to 9th. So he's got ahead of Will Moore and Graham Johnson and the rest of the GT4 front runners. But there are the championship leaders. 31 Team Parker Bentley, Rick Parfitt driving. Teammate Seb Morris bouncing up and down. You can see former racer Richard Westbrook, who's running the team, in the garage on the headset, watching the screens as well. Live TV coverage does a lot for teams. They can see an awful lot more than you do when the car comes past you once and you're watching the timing screens. Well, let's see what we've got at John Minshaw at the S's, zigged and zagged at the chicane, and you can see the back starting to step out. And the car spun there, so it wasn't on the exit of McLean's, it was in the S's. Akhil Rabindra has come into the pits in the 59 McLaren. Let's take a look again, coming down into the braking zone. There is Liam Griffin behind. And as you turn in, watch the Bentley turn in here and then hard left, hard right. And it was at that stage that the Lamborghini stepped out and the back swung around, so too much oversteer. And that's where he came back onto the track. And the Parker Bentley coming through. And Rick Parfitt will have known instantly what he was seeing there at the side of the road. You saw Derek Johnson slowing right up because the Lamborghini spun in front of him. And unfortunately, yellow flags out down at Redgate. So that's where the Nissan went off. And the 59 McLaren, which is being investigated for contact with the number 14 McLaren, that has come into the garage 59 car of Akhil Rabindra has been dragged back into the garage, and that team being overseen by Bas Leinders, the head of customer racing for McLaren. Bas Leinders, very successful racing driver in his own right over many years in single-seaters in Formula 3000 and knocking on the doors of Formula 1 and also a GT racer, then ran the Mark VDS racing team very successfully, and now the head of customer racing at McLaren. Mark Farmer leads from Derek Johnson by 1.8 seconds, and then this battle. Liam Griffin in third place, Rick Parfitt in fourth in the Bentley, and behind him you can see the Nissan, and that is the 08 car of Charlie Fagg. So Nissan Skyline is what I still call them, and the latest version of the Nissan made its debut in the VLN race on the Nordschleife of the Nürburgring yesterday, showing impressive pace. So 2015 car's now been superseded by, I suppose, what will be a 2018 car when it comes through. Charlie Fagg driving that car, not a championship contender, but it is in fifth place at the moment, and right behind Rick Parfitt. Now, you can see Liam Griffin's Lamborghini there, still a little tail happy down the Craner curves. And I'm sure Rick Parfitt is feeling a little nervy about having the Nissan there. Equally certain that Charlie Fagg, knowing that they're just out essentially to test the car in a race situation rather than just doing test days, what he will not want to do is materially affect the British GT Championship. Nobody wants to be that guy, the guy that everybody looks at and goes, if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have ruined the championship. So he's in a difficult position in that Nissan, the third of these cars. because he wants to prove it, he wants to race hard in it, they want to really stress it, really push it, see what it can do. But what he doesn't want to do is get involved in this, the battle between the second Barwell Lamborghini and the Parker Racing Bentley. Because if he takes one or the other out, then, you know, he's ruined the championship. There's the In2 Racing McLaren. So Will Phillips back out and now going a second lap down to the leaders. Through goes Liam Griffin, through goes Rick Parfitt, and behind him Charlie Fagg, and closing in is the green and grey Mercedes. That's car number 88, Richard Neary. So Rick Parfitt would be a lot happier if Charlie Fagg disappeared from behind him, and actually, as Richard Neary catches the Nissan, that might just happen, because once Richard Neary tries to get by, because he wants to go further up the order, then Charlie Fagg may be slowed down and leave Rick Parfitt to deal with Liam Griffin. So what do they do then with the Bentley? Now the Bentley, because it won last time out at Brands Hatch, must spend 20 seconds longer in the pits than any of its rivals, so they've got to get that 20 seconds advantage on the track. In the GT4 category, here is our race leader. So Nigel Moore in the 62 car, outgoing champion Graham Johnson. They started the season in genetic as the McLaren wasn't ready. They had problems at Brands Hatch, the McLaren wouldn't start, didn't leave the pit lane, so they had a horrible time. Finally got a really good qualifying run out of the car here. They were in third spot, or second spot on the grid in the GT4 category. Right behind them, 86, that's Toyota GT86. Again, like the Nissan we just talked about in GT3, it's sort of a GT4 spec car, but not quite, so it's not actually eligible for championship points. And it only does occasional races this year. On board with Will Chigurtha in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta G55. That's the white and blue car in the background. Will Chigurtha right behind the number 100 McLaren. That's the second Black Bull Garage 59 car. That's Andrew Watson. Watson, again, not a championship contender. Chigurtha needs to try and get by if he can, but actually in terms of the points, doesn't need to that badly, because Alex Reed in the 51 Lannon Racing car, their only championship rival, is already behind on points, and 5 cars further back in the order. Reed is down in 18th place, Will Chigurtha in 14th place. So 4 places further back, my maths isn't what it used to be, or what it ought to be. So at the moment, he's already got a points advantage and adding to that in the race. But again, everything can change in a heartbeat. It only needs the car in front to have a moment for you to get caught up in it and suddenly use a lap or two in the pit lane trying to repair a bit of damage. So nothing is taken for granted. One thing that we learn from sports car racing, and here I'm thinking particularly of Le Mans in the last 2 years, is 1, never give up, and 2, it is never over until after the checkered flag. So, you know, this much we know, this much everybody in sports car racing, GT racing, whatever endurance racing, they know that nothing is taken for granted. Race leader Mark Farmer being warned about exceeding track limits, and the race leader 2.2 seconds ahead needs to be careful about that. What they're talking about is when you drift out wide on the exit of the corner, usually over the curbs, and here at Redgate is a classic example. Watch Rick Parfitt in a 31 Bentley, 2 wheels over the white line is acceptable, 4 wheels there is definitely not. Now, one of the things they're talking about is turn 4. That's down here at the old hairpin, and that's cutting too much of the corner. You've got to have at least 2 wheels on the grass as you take that right-handed element, and turn 10 as well, and that's the chicane, cutting too much of the chicane as you head onto the Melbourne Loop. Down into the Melbourne hairpin, the battle for second in GT4, 501, Graham Johnson ahead of this battle. Will Chigurtha in 55, right behind Andrew Watson, and right behind 501 is that white and blue Toyota GT86. So it's a development of the road car, and it's a privately funded development of that car into a GT4 spec. We've seen that car race on a number of occasions over the last couple of seasons, but it is definitely not a Toyota factory-developed car in the way that the McLaren GT4 has been developed for racing by McLaren as a factory. And so it is making slower progress than were it being developed by the factory. Will Tregurtha in the white and blue, number 55 Ginetta, 14th place at the moment. And looks like he's quite happy to sit behind Andrew Watson right now. In the GT4 category, 20-second extra in the pit stops for the race winner, as in GT3 of the previous race. But the Brands Hatch race winner is not here. That was the number 42 Macmillan AMR Aston Martin Vantage. And that car not on the grid, so nobody spends 20 seconds in the pits. 15 seconds for being second is the 56 McLaren, and 10 seconds for being third is the 55 Ginetta. So that car will lose a further 10 seconds to its rivals in the pit lane, but at the moment they're getting on for being 10 seconds ahead of the 51 car, and that's where the championship battle lies. Championship battle in the GT3 class are on board with Rick Parfitt, behind Liam Griffin still. Aston Martin 1-2. And if Parfitt finishes where he is in 4th place and Minshaw in 7th, Parfitt and Seb Morris will be the champion. John Minshaw and Phil Keed in second. You see Rick Parfitt there, jumping the curbs on the way in the car, stepping out sideways. That's exactly what happened in the second element there to John Minshaw in his Lamborghini on the first couple of laps. Well, Liam Griffin wants to finish on the podium at the end of the season if he can in this race, so he will be doing his level best to do that in his number 6 Lamborghini that he shares with Sam Tordoff, the ex-touring car driver, and they want to finish the year with a podium, with a win if they can catch the Aston Martins. Sam Tordoff going, come on, son! And he is trying to come on, he's trying to stay in front of the Bentley, but at the moment his teammate John Minshaw down in 7th place. Problem down the Crane of curves. In fact, that's the exit of Hollywood, so he's got himself into a little bit of a problem. Zigging and zagging out of Hollywood, and down the Crane of curves comes the Bentley, so a little bit more of a lift off there for the yellow flags for Liam Griffin than maybe Rick Parfitt, and Parfitt gets momentum down the Crane of curves. Up into 3rd place he goes. We'll need to see that from the outside. Number 69, Ginetta, is the car that was off in the gravel traps. Might be the 66. Well, let's take a look again from on board then. Yellow flags are being waved, they get into traffic, so slower Ginetta in front, and in fact Liam Griffin just gets completely foxed there as Rick Parfitt lunges from Hollywood down the Crane of curves between the two cars, getting in front of Liam Griffin and also finding a way past that slower Ginetta. So, again, as they go by the number 36 car of Abby Eaton, this is Rick Parfitt checking the mirrors. Where is Liam Griffin? Doesn't want to get collected by the Lamborghini. Coming in behind, there is Charlie Fagg in 08, the white Nissan. Taller of those two white cars. Headlights ablaze, flashing furiously. Rick Parfitt coming down the inside of another GT4 battle. Oh, and more trouble. That's the leader in GT4. That is Will Moore facing the wrong way. Now, this car led at Brands Hatch from pole position, and then the car retired. It was a drive shaft failure. He's facing the wrong way. He's got it wrong out to the old hairpin. The back of the car has drifted out onto the dirt. It spun, stalled the engine. Now he's got it going again. But 501, Graham Johnson is now the leader of the race in GT4. The reigning champions who have finally got this McLaren starting to work the way they want it to. And that means that he leads the field. The GT86 behind him, the white car with the blue rear end, not a championship contender, not going to score points. So number 100 is second in the GT4 class, that's Andrew Watson. This car now moves up to 3rd, but hang on a minute, Will Tregurtha with the bit between his teeth, looks as though he might be having a run. Leaders in traffic, and they are coming up behind Will Tregurtha. So there is Mark Farmer in the blue and chrome Aston Martin, and behind him Derek Johnson in the red and white Aston Martin. You can see those GT3 cars with the enormous rear wing compared to the GT4s, which are much more subtle. And through goes the Lamborghini. Lamborghini of Minshaw has gone by Richard Neary, so that's an important pass for John Minshaw as he goes past Richard Neary for 6th position now. So Rick Parfitt has moved up to 3rd ahead of Liam Griffin, and Charlie Fagg has moved up to 4th ahead of Liam Griffin. There's the Nissan, and there's Liam Griffin on the outside. Here comes John Minshaw down the inside of the 72 McLaren, and that is Adam Ballan's car. So he goes by him as they lap the GT4 field. Matt Nicol-Jones, oh, it didn't even run out onto the dirt. Wow. So big moment there for Matt Nicol-Jones. Stalls the engine, loses the lead of the race. And through, you can see the multicoloured and McLaren in the background to take the lead of GT4. So it's all arms and elbows as the GT3 cars come through. The lead group in GT4 on board again with Will Tregurtha. This is essentially for second. Here's the race lead battle. Mark Farmer, Derek Johnston. Johnston, two teammates, both run by the same team, TF Sport. But of course they've got their own agendas, and although they get on well out of the car, they will be arch rivals because both want to win this final race of the championship. Mark Farmer will hand over to John Barnes, Derek Johnston to Johnny Adam, but that won't be until 60 minutes of the race have elapsed because the gentleman drivers that start must do at least 60 minutes. There's John Barnes on the radio, former British GT champion, as he was telling Alex earlier on, between his first and second GT careers, and that's the end of the GT4 championship battle. That's Alex Reed in the Lannon Racing Ginetta, buried in the gravel. They cannot now win the title. Well, there was contact between him and Matt Nicol-Jones. Now, that looked as though he got in behind Matt Nicol-Jones. Did the 51 Aston Martin, did the 51 Ginetta catch the Aston Martin as it was suddenly slowing? Was there a problem with the Aston, or was that racing contact? Stewards will investigate that, as they must every incident. Drivers running for safety, or running the opposite way, in fact, in this case. So for Lannon Racing, I'm afraid Alex Reed and David Pittard are out. David Pittard will not get to drive. Slippery surface flag, so is that what caused the incident, or is it as a result of the incident? Mark Farmer, Derek Johnson, 1-2, half a second apart, and they are 5 seconds nearly clear of Rick Parfitt in third, who's got Charlie Fagg behind him. In fact, Fagg nearly 4 seconds back from Rick Parfitt now, so good news. There's the Bentley in third place. Good news for Rick Parfitt, he's on his own, so he can just do his own job, keep the car on the island, put the laps in, allow the leaders to battle in front. At the moment, for Rick Parfitt, things are going about as well as could be expected. From third on the grid, from fourth on the grid, he's in third place. His championship rival, John Minshaw, behind on points, behind in the race at the moment, down in sixth. Although Minshaw is fast catching Liam Griffin. He's 2 seconds behind Griffin at the beginning of this lap, and I suggest that probably by the end of this lap, he might be in front of Liam Griffin, because he's got a championship that he could win, and Liam Griffin can't. So I'm sure he will try and allow his teammate to go by as easily as possible. Mark Farmer, though, is not going to do the same for Derek Johnston. If they get side by side, if Johnston comes down the inside and has a big lunge into the Melbourne hairpin or into Goddard's, then it will be gentlemanly and discreet. Don't forget, Derek Johnson put the lean in on Mark Farmer in the first corner of the race, so, you know, there's that. Just going by me was the number 62 Aston Martin of Will Moore, the Academy Motorsport car that started on pole position, so that is still running, but the contact between him and the 51 Lannon Racing car of Alex Reed will be examined by the stewards. They're also going to look at the incident between the 88 car and the 62. 88 Richard Neary, and 62 Will Moore, the Academy Motorsport car. Did we see that? Mercedes and Academy Motorsport car? Not sure we did. No, not sure we saw that at all. Certainly Will Moore spun on his own, and then we saw there was an incident with the 51 Lannon Racing Ginetta. Meanwhile, John Minshaw in sixth place. Across the line this time, still 2.5 seconds behind Liam Griffin in the number 6 Lamborghini. The 33 car down the Craner curves. We're on board in the passenger seat. All looks very controlled, doesn't it? If you were in the passenger seat, you would be fearing for your life, because these cars accelerate and brake at a rate that you cannot possibly fathom as a road car driver. I don't care what road car you drive, from a diesel Seat Arosa to a Lamborghini Gallardo or Huracan, nothing you drive on the road can prepare you for the speed of a racing GT car. They are phenomenally brutal, not just the way they accelerate, the way they corner with slick tyres up to temperature and the aerodynamic downforce, and the way they brake. Here's Rick Parfitt in third place, 5 seconds behind the leaders. You were just on board with John Minshaw, 11 seconds behind the leader. So that's only 6 seconds back. Don't forget the Bentley will spend 20 seconds longer in the pit lane than the Lamborghini. So even as they are now, even though Parfitt is 3 places on the road in front of Minshaw, or 2 as the championship sees it, because that Nissan is not going to score points. He is only 13 seconds in front. In fact, as they cross the line, Minshaw 14 seconds behind the leaders and Parfitt 5 seconds behind. So still the gap between them is 9 seconds, which means in the second part of the race, when their teammates are in the car, the Lamborghini will be in front of the Bentley, purely based on the time that the Bentley must spend in the pit lane. Now, what happens to the Aston Martins, they can't control, but the Lamborghini team need to push as hard as they can. Winning the race will guarantee that Minshaw is the champion. Lannon Racing, Ginetta out in the gravel. And that means David Pittard doesn't get a drive. Alex Legui is down with the Lannon Racing team.
Yeah, I'm down here with a rather disappointed David Pittard. Poor old Alex in there. From what I could tell, he looked like a bit of a sitting duck. But what do you guys know from your end?
I must admit, I saw the car in the gravel and walked off, so I've not actually seen a full replay of the incident. Obviously, just looks like race over for us. Too much damage to repair, let alone get the car back even. So it's a shame. We had to go for win or bust, and unfortunately, we busted. So yeah, it's just one of those things, unfortunately, in racing. Big thank you to Lannon for the mega car they've prepared this year. Big thank you to the team for all the hard work they put in. And big thank you to my sponsors to make it happen. So I look forward to hopefully being back here next year. How
does that fit you now with the championship, then with the DNF? Can you still make B2?
I think so. I think our closest rival is the number 72 McLaren. And I'm pretty sure they probably need a top 3 or top 5. And I think they're sort of lingering just outside that at the moment. So we'll be on the calculators in the back of the garage at the moment. And then the rest we will just be hoping that it plays in our favour.
Well, it has been a great year for you on the whole, and fingers crossed for P2, and best of luck for next year as well.
Yes, thank you very much. The championship's been awesome. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've been out for 2 years to come back and do this and be fighting for the championship. Yeah, I hope to do it for many more years to come.
That's what we like to hear. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Well, disappointing for David Pittard, for his teammate Alex Reid, and for Lannon Racing. They've had a really strong campaign, been in the championship hunt right down to this Donington decider. But unfortunately for them, again, little incident, not necessarily within their control, has robbed them of the opportunity to catch. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that this car we ride on board with Will Chigurtha in the 55 HHC Motorsport car that leads the championship. No guarantee that they're going to finish either, but they are sufficiently far ahead that only Lannon Racing could catch them in terms of points for the title. So that cannot be denied them, even if they end up in the gravel trap. Through comes the number 7 Bentley, that's Ian Loggy. That car, a race winner, not last time out, time before. So they had their first win of the year in that car. That's currently in 8th place. There's your GT4 leader. So the 501 car, Graham Johnson, that Dayglow orange colour on the top. Johnny Adam watching the action from the pit box. There's HHC Racing next door to TF Sport. So that's your lead car your lead pair of cars in GT3, the TF Sport Aston Martins, and HHC Racing currently lying in 3rd place in the GT4 category. And I'm sure Will Chigurtha happy now to sit behind the number 100 McLaren of Andrew Watson. Their championship title rivals are out of the race, and so that means the title will go to Will Chigurtha and Stuart Middleton. And they've got another battle on their hands as well. Stuart Middleton versus Will Chigurtha, because Sunoco the American Oil Company, through their British arm, Anglo-American Oil, drivers sign up at the beginning of the year to take part in a challenge to earn themselves rides at the Daytona 500, the opening blue ribbon event of the IMSA sports car program at Daytona in February. And currently, Stuart Middleton heads the Sunoco Whelen Challenge from teammate Will Tregurtha. And whoever comes out with the most points gets a ride in the main race. So Stuart Middleton leads Will Tregurtha. Stuart Mosley, who races in the Radical Euro Cup, lies third in that. And Matt Bell, who's been racing in the UK in the LMP3 Cup, lies fourth in the championship, but in that points race. But Stuart Middleton, Will Tregurtha, both battling to follow drivers like Ross Kaiser, Felipe Nasser, of course, who's now in Grand Prix racing, Bradley Smith, Phil Keane, Johnny Adams, Seb Morris, who was last year's winner, all have had drives in the Daytona 500 as a result of being the top point scorer in that competition. There's another competition as well going on for the Sunoco 240 Challenge, which is to go into one of the support races. And Rick Parfitt Jr. is the man who leads that from John Minshaw. So that little race as well, to get a free drive in Daytona, is also replicating the championship race. Here's our race leader then, John Farmer, ahead of number 1 Derek Johnston. Rick Parfitt in third, is closing slowly his last lap. Rick Parfitt in that Bentley, the fastest that he set in the race, a 1 minute 29.6. The leaders doing 1 minute 30.2 for Farmer, 1 minute 30.0 for Johnson. So Rick Parfitt has closed 0.6 of a second on the race leader in that lap alone. So he is flying at the moment. And a 1:30.7 for the leader and a 30.4 for Johnson, for Parfitt, shows that he is closing still. There is the Lamborghini of John Minshaw. He dives down the inside of the GT4 Nissan. It's the 370Z. And through he goes, John Minshaw still trying to close on Liam Griffin in 5th place, his teammate in the number 6 Barwell Lamborghini. Oh, and again, another massive moment for Will Moore in the 62 Academy Motorsports Aston Martin, looking very second-hand at the moment, flapping bits of bodywork, mechanical failure at Brands Hatch, and that car appears to be an absolute handful in the race here in Donington Park. We saw him spin away the lead there at the old hairpin. That was another massive moment. I think he may not be confident in that car. In fact, he's pulling way out of the way to let the leaders go through. He's a long way down the order. There is car number 31, Rick Parfitt. Hour and 28 left in the race, so we're in through the first quarter of it. 30 minutes down in his stint, 28 to go. Can't come in until 60 minutes have elapsed. And if you are a second early, if you come in while the clock still says 1 hour, 0 minutes and 1 second to go, then you will get a drive-through penalty for pitting out of the pit window. So the teams don't want to waste time, but you can't take too much either. Yellow flag infringement involving car number 31 and car number 08 will be investigated after the race. Remember, exiting Hollywood, when we had that Nissan in the barriers and yellow flags being waved, Rick Parfitt dived by car number 6 you just saw there, Liam Griffin. Somebody's off. It's the 62 car of Will Moore, and that had to come, didn't it? That car has been such a handful, and he has gone off. That is a trail of dust, I think. Or is that oil smoke? Or whatever. Yes, I think it might be oil smoke. That is on the back straight. So Will Moore, we saw him pulling off out of the way of the leaders as they went by. We then left him, and I think he may have just rolled onto the grass there and out of the race. So potentially, after the race, we might see the championship decided yet. Leaders in traffic and a challenge from Derek Johnston in the red and white Aston Martin on Mark Farmer. They're coming through the GT4 field again, and Mark Farmer, the race leader, car number 11, chrome blue and white, ahead of the chrome red and white MSW number 1 of Derek Johnson. That is your lead battle across the line, as close as they have been, and Rick Parfitt now in 3rd place. Right, stewards have now reviewed the video clearly and heard from the marshals. The yellow flag was notified as being at turn 1 and turn 2. Turn 2 is Hollywood, but Rick made his move down the Craner curves, and the stewards have now notified us there will be no further action taken. So that potential dark cloud over Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris from the 31 Bentley has been lifted. There will be no penalty for that pass that got him up into third place. Charlie Fagg also was being investigated in Nissan for a pass there, and he has also been told, or the team will be told, there be no further action. So the lead battle still running nose to tail. Coming by yet another of the GT4 McLarens. No chance there for Derek Johnston to get a run on Mark Farmer. Farmer got by nice and cleanly. Down into Fogarty's S's. Named after the Blackburn Bullet, Carl Fogarty, multiple world superbike champion. Down into the Melbourne hairpin. Starting to climb up towards Goddard's, the final corner on the circuit. Another 180-degree turn, although Goddard sort of starts off tight and opens up. Headlights flashing on the Bentley of Rick Parfitt behind. Leader, Mark Farmer, his last lap in traffic, 1:33.2, 1:31.0 for Derek Johnson, which is closed right up. And Rick Parfitt was a 1:30.8. Parfitt this time got caught in traffic. The leader's doing 1:30.8, Parfitt a 31.2, so he's dropped back 4/10, gone from 2.1 to 2.5 seconds behind them, but he's still keeping up the pace. The Bentley good on its tyres on a long run. A squeeze through on the inside of the McLaren, just about squeezing through. They go by David Patterson in the 56 Tolman McLaren, and that car is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th place in the GT4 class, 4th in terms of where the points are. So Mark Farmer, Derek Johnston, the gap seesawing between them in traffic. Look at the way the Aston turned in there under Derek Johnston as you get over that brow into the first part of McLaren's. Tail just trying to slide out a little bit. Richard Neary being investigated for a yellow flag infringement, as is John Minshaw. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. Notification for Rick Parfitt and Charlie Fagg came through fairly quickly, so hopefully that will be the case here as well. Lead 3 all in the same shot. 23 laps in. This is the end of lap 24 coming up. Mark Farmer has held off Derek Johnston all the way. Rick Parfitt in 3rd position. There is the Bentley at the back of the shot. Coming down towards us is the Watson-Tregurtha battle. So that is the battle for 2nd in GT4 effectively. If we take the Toyota GT86 out of the way, there is the Toyota, and there is the battle for 2nd and 3rd in GT4, and the leaders are on it. Another nearly 24 minutes for these guys to run in the first stint of the race, and then into hour 2 of this 2-hour race, they will be allowed to make their pit stops. Through goes Mark Farmer. Through goes Derek Johnston, and again Will Tregurtha seeing what's coming behind. The team will have been on the raid again. The leaders are coming. Let them go, let them go. Don't get involved. And now they've gone by him. They now go by the number 100 McLaren of Andrew Watson. And the gap that was opened up as Will Tregurtha got out of the way is now closed because Watson has been eased offline as well. Through goes Rick Parfitt on the straight, so he's not inconvenienced by that battle for 3rd in the GT4 class, and they have closed in on the Toyota in front. So coming towards us with the orange upper deck, that's 501, and that is Graham Johnson, your GT3 leader, GT4 leader, and the GT3 lead battle is about to go right by, and look how close Rick Parfitt is now. Much closer. He got a little bit held up by another of the Ginettas, and through he goes. That Ginetta, in fact, being lapped by the GT4 lead group, and the leaders go through across the line, 0.3 apart, and Rick Parfitt 1.6 from 2.5 behind this time. Wants to go down the inside of the McLaren, can't get through there. Wasn't quite enough room. Graham Johnson had to find a racing line for himself there somewhere, or he'd have been off in the gravel trap on the exit, and that gap has just doubled from 1.3 to about 2.5 seconds as Rick Parfitt gets to the old hairpin. Well, there's his teammate Seb Morris in the white racing underwear. Oop, mistake there out of Goddard's. see who that was, not entirely certain. And the battle for the GT4 lead group starting to close up. And behind them is Minshaw. Minshaw's gone by Liam Griffin, so that was in traffic while we were watching the leaders, but he has caught and passed Liam Griffin. We've got the onboard camera, of course, so let's take a look. Well, down the back straight, Minshaw comes a-calling, and Liam Griffin sees him, and I'm sure eased off the throttle to let him go by, nice and harmlessly. So, Seb Morris, car in third place. Don't forget, the Bentley team have the points advantage. And behind Seb Morris, another Bentley driver, Andy Merrick, wearing that red sweatshirt. Contact between 88 and 43. Okay, so that's Richard Neer in the 88 car. 43 is the Century Motorsport car of Jacob Matheson. So that's going to be investigated by the stewards. So that's clearly a little bit of kerfuffle in Lappery. Richard Neary also being investigated, as we heard, for that yellow flag potential infringement. This is a battle now for second place in GT4. Toyota GT86 in front of them is not a point scorer, so it's effectively invisible. Pretend you can't see it. Will Jagurtha right behind the McLaren. So where's the McLaren stronger? Picks up off the corner nicely. I was talking to a couple of McLaren drivers early on, and they're saying that the McLaren is an inherent understeerer. Got lots of electronic driver aid, so it's very driver friendly for gentleman drivers, which is, you know, of course, Pro-Am in so many of these championships. British GT, the Blancpain Series and so on is very much a factor for GT3 and especially GT4 cars, as being designed to be very driver friendly. You can see, may not have the speed into the corner, picks up nicely in a straight line. So the lap times very similar indeed between the McLaren, last time round 1:39.8, and the Ginetta behind it, last time round 1:39.8, but the way that they achieve it, quite different. Aston Martin 1-2 still, and Mark Farmer ahead of Derek Johnston. Don't forget, as they came across the line last time round, Rick Parfitt was 1.3 seconds back, then he got held up into Redgate, and the gap doubled. He's now 1.5 seconds behind Derek Johnston. So Rick Parfitt closing in. Last time the lead, Aston's 130.3, 130.4 for the two of them. Parfitt 129.9, found half a second over the Aston Martins in front. And if he does that for another couple of laps, then by the time they get to the pit stops, he could be right in between them or in front of them. At the moment, the Bentley has got more race pace. What's the Lamborghini got, Martin, you're asking? Well, the Lamborghini, last time round, 131.1 for John Minshaw. So not as fast as the Astons, and definitely not as fast as the 31 Bentley. Minshaw 1.2 seconds slower on the last lap. Don't forget, on the last lap here on the straight, he got by his teammate Liam Griffin, but Liam Griffin did a 132.3 to let him go by before they got to the Fogarty chicane. Over the brow, down into the Melbourne hairpin, so coming downhill from very high speed into this right-handed hairpin, long hairpin, very easy to outbrake yourself, climbing in, classic British Parkland circuit, blind brow, pop over the top into Goddard's, sort of feels like it drops away on you all the way through the left-hander, careful not to run all the way out onto the dirt and bounce around and lose traction, down the straight into Redgate, the first corner. Gravel track was extended at Redgate, so the old pub, the Redgate Lodge, has disappeared, hopefully soon to be rebuilt somewhere else or a little further back, and then sweeping through here, blind crest in Hollywood, over the brow, and then plunging down the Craner curves again, over the brow in the first left-hander, and then carrying the speed down into the old hairpin. It's a fabulous track to watch at, it's a fabulous track for racing drivers. Very few drivers don't actively like this track. Among them, John Minshaw, really not his favourite track at all. And maybe that's just history and the way that it's sort of treated him. We'll find out later whether his view has changed or not. Andrew Watson, 100, ahead of Will Jagurtha, 55. Jagurtha and in in third place now, but effectively champion-elect really in the GT4 category, with his teammate Stuart Middleton in the pit lane, waiting and hoping to drive. Contact between number 1 and number 11, that's the race leaders. Number 1, Derek Johnson, who's in second, and number 11, Mark Farmer. That's going to be investigated. That's now they're saying contact between 1 and 11 at T11. Now, the only time I've seen them come together was in the first corner when Derek Johnson leant on Mark Farmer, but we'll wait and see. And also car number 7 being told to respect the track limits. That's Ian Loggy in the second Team Parker Racing Bentley. There's number 88 car of Richard Neary, and he is closing in on Liam Griffin's Lamborghini, slowly, catching his way through the lead group. You can see the top 4 in the GT4 category, or the top 3, plus the Invitational Toyota GT86. And Richard Neary having his best run in qualifying. And there goes a GT3 car as seen from a GT4 car. And that, again, if you're in the passenger seat of the GT4 Ginetta, you'd be quite perplexed at how such a simple and straightforward car can accelerate and brake and corner quite the way that these GT4 cars do, and then somebody comes past you on the GT3 car that looks like he's got the afterburners on and just disappears into the distance, and that makes you recalibrate your own expectations. John Minshaw, 5th place, 13 seconds behind the leaders, and 11.5 seconds behind Rick Parfitt's Bentley. So half of Parfitt's pit stop 20-second success penalty has already been undone by the Bentley driver. He's already nearly half, over 10 seconds ahead of Minshaw, so the 20-second penalty becomes a 10-second deficit if that gap doesn't shrink. Minshaw currently lapping 130.7 last time round, Parfitt 130.2, so getting closer. There's Liam Griffin on his own in 6th position. Richard Neary not yet caught up with him. There's your race leaders, 1, 2 and 3. Rick Parfitt 1.5 seconds behind the leader. Last time round, Mark Farmer and Derek Johnson in the 2 Aston Martins, the blue one and the red one, both in the 129s, 129.8 for Farmer, car number 11, 129.7 for Johnson, car number 1. He closed to 6/10 behind at the line last time. The gap remains about that at 3 or 4 car lengths. And the team managers of car number 88 and car number 33 being summoned to race control. So that's the Roll Centre Racing Mercedes. There it is of Richard Neary. So the ABBA Commercials machine, and also the Barwell Lamborghini car of John Minshaw, car number 33. So team managers of both cars being told to report to race control. That is not good news. Let's have a look in the background. Change for 2nd place, and that looks like a problem with the number 100 car. Will Chigurtha went straight by as if the McLaren of Andrew Watson had just slowed to a total halt. Here's the onboard view. Ooh, goodness me. Out of coppice, and again, you saw how quickly the McLaren accelerated towards the camera. That wasn't the video being sped up. Happy birthday, Grace. 7 years old. I remember that. That was when they launched Radio 1. No further more on that subject. Here's the Toyota GT86 in front of us, and this is the car of Richard Williams. And again, just to remind you, the Toyota is not in the GT4 category. It's an invitational class car, so is Williams going to pull out of the way and let Chigurtha to go through? Well, he's not really going to have to. He doesn't really need to. Will Chigurtha doesn't have to pass him. It will be nice to catch the McLaren and try and win the race, and they're not too far behind Graham Johnson, but on the other hand, much more important to finish the race on the podium and celebrate being champions. Oh, has a lunge down the inside into the old hairpin. Now you see, the Toyota didn't have to let him go through, but I think actually that was a decent bit of driving by Richard Williams, probably signalled it a little bit early. There may have been a little hand signal in the cockpit, and he pulled over to way to the left-hand side of the racing line to allow Tjugurtha to go down through the inside. Now, whatever ailed the 100 McLaren, Andrew Watson seems to be back up to speed again. So he's now on the back of the Toyota, as Graham Johnston is on the back of Mark Farmer, car number 1, not allowing the number 11 Aston Martin to get away in any way, shape or form. Tom Ferrier's TF Sport team racing here in the British GT Championship decider and also at Spa-Francorchamps, because they've got cars in the European Le Mans Series race weekend in the GT3 Michelin Cup. Former British GT racers racing in the series. And these two Aston Martins, as well as battling for victory here at a circuit that's always been favourable to Aston Martin, are also battling for 3rd place in the championship standings. So, as the Lamborghini of Liam Griffin stays further down the order, these guys are now starting to become more and more of a factor for 3rd place in the championship. So there's not only race strategy to consider here, but there is also a little bit of championship points score tallying to do. Now, I can't add up on air, it's all I can do to talk on air, so we're going to have to trust that to the officials to try and work out exactly how that is going to end up. British GT Championship currently in 3rd place in the points, Liam Griffin and Sam Tordoff. That's the number 6 Lamborghini. Derek Johnson, Johnny Adam, 3 points behind coming into this race. They're currently 2nd and outscoring them, so they would move up into 3rd. But Mark Farmer and John Barnes, who are currently leading the race, were 7.5 points behind Liam Griffin and Sam Tordoff, and only 4.5 points behind Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam. So at the moment, 3rd, 4th and 5th would be turned on its head. 5th would become 3rd, Farmer and John Barnes, Mark Farmer and John Barnes. 4th would stay where they are, Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam, but they would be ahead of Liam Griffin and Sam Tordoff, who will drop to 5th place. What is unlikely to change at the moment as we ride with Rick Parfitt in the Rick Parfitt Seb Morris Team Parker Bentley is that they are not going to lose the championship now. They come in 10.5 points ahead of John Minshaw and Phil Keane, who are behind them. So you can see Seb Morris looking relatively happy and relaxed. Of course, he's still got to drive and just about an hour's worth of race. So he's got to get through traffic, he's got to catch and pass cars that have got a shorter pit stop to do than him. He's got to decide how to deal with all that, make sure that it's clean. There are no penalties coming into the pit lane, no penalties going out of the pit lane, because as long as the Lamborghini is still on track, there is still a chance that something could happen. And what you don't want to do is give it away right at the end. Well, there is the 31 Bentley, our championship leaders in 3rd place, going by the Toyota GT86. Rick Parfitt again homing in on the leaders. And this John Minshaw did right at the start, attacking the Aston Martins on the opening lap, getting in between them. I think Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris have decided that the only way to try and win this championship is to try and win the race and see what happens in the championship afterwards. If they don't win the race, it may not be the end of the world. As long as they're in front of the Lamborghini, that should still be enough. Well, there is the conflab at TF Sport, and those guys in the helmets and the fire suits, they're the ones potentially now who hold the fate of the race and the championship in their grasp, because they will do the pit stop. They will fuel the car, they will change the tyres, and they cannot afford to make mistakes. They can't afford to get a penalty. They need to be as quick as they can, but not making an error. So 99% attack on the air guns, the tyres and the fuel hoses and everything else. But again, just going through, remember, until the fuel's done, only the driver change can happen. No one's to touch the car. No tyres, no air guns, all of that. Going through it again and again. They all know this. They've done it all season, all last year, all the year before. But it's always worth going again. Okay, everybody, championship is in our hands. While the car is in the pit lane, it's ours to lose. Let's not lose it. And that's not a negative, that's a positive. Let's just focus, let's take a deep breath. We know we can do this, let's just do it. That was the attitude coming in here from John Minshaw and Phil Keane. Let's just do it. Let's get out there, let's drive the car as fast as we know we can drive it. We know we can win races. Haven't won one here, doesn't matter. You can always win where you haven't won before. Things happen, there is still potential. Another 5-6 minutes in the stint before the pit window opens for the GT3 and the GT4 cars. So another 2 or 3 laps for these AM drivers, the gentleman drivers in the field, to do. And when we say AM, we don't mean that they can't drive, we mean that they're not professional salaried drivers. Most of them very successful businessmen who are able to afford to come racing in their spare time. And their teammates predominantly are full-time professional drivers who do this for a living. In fact, they don't. What they do is they ride bicycles and go to the gym for a living. Occasionally, for light relief, they drive a racing car. That's the way the balance is. In the same way that when you see Usain Bolt for 9.8 seconds, that's not all he does all week. I mean, that is all he does all week, but he trains to do it. John Barnes with the helmet on. The TS Sport crew are ready. You always want to be suited and booted, ready to go, everything in place, hands device on, the one that attaches the helmet, goes under the seat belts to protect the neck in case of an incident, an accident. You want to be ready and calm, plenty of time. You don't want to be rushing in from the back of the garage, going, oh, where's my helmet, where's my helmet? Everything in its place, ready to go. Leaders now in with the GT4 leader, but they're also right up behind Ian Loggie's Bentley. So Ian Loggie, the green and white Bentley in front, black, green and white, being caught by Mark Farmer, and right behind him Graham Johnson. They've already gone by Graham Johnston in the red and white car, Graham Johnson in the orange and white car. 4 minutes to go until the pit window opens. So at least another 2 laps. They're doing 1:30. So in fact, another 3 laps before they'll be able to come into the pits. And at the moment, probably the biggest gap, first to second, 1.3 seconds. And that's just a little bit of traffic dictated. Again, Rick Parfitt not taking any chances, going by the GT4 leader. Remember that happened to him the last time they caught them. He also caught Graham Johnson at Redgate, the first corner, got held up, lost a 1.5 seconds or so. Seb Morris, the Welshman, getting his helmet on as well. He'll take over from Rick Parfitt. And essentially now, the pro drivers will likely get in as soon as humanly possible. They're fresh, they'll have fresh tyres, a full tank of fuel, and be ready to go through to the end of the race. Ian Loggie's Bentley still not being passed by Mark Farmer and Graham Johnston. Bentley is just as quick as the 31 car. Now, is Loggie going to try and slow the Astons down so his teammate Rick Parfitt can close right up? Ooh, again, cuts off the nose of the leader as they get to the Melbourne hairpin. He could have stayed out wide, run round wide and allowed the Aston to go through, decided not to, and that means that Loggie, last time round, 1:32.7. That's the pace the Astons are going to be limited to. They've already been slowed down to 32s, and Rick Parfitt in clear air behind. 1:33 last lap as he got held in traffic. 1:30.6 this time, closes a little. First of the Astons has gone by Ian Loggie, second of the Astons goes by as well. So Mark Farmer goes through, so too does Derek Johnston. And Rick Parfitt will come up to his teammate fairly shortly, and I'm sure that Ian Loggie will be very helpful about letting him go through. Loggie was being shown the blue flags by the stewards, which by the marshals to allow him to be aware that there were quicker cars coming up behind. I'm sure they will have told him on the radio as well. And basically he waited until they came knocking and then let them go through. So Seb Morris looking fairly relaxed. Andy Merrick with a few little words of advice there. Tim Harvey behind, you can see, from the British Racing Drivers Club. He's one of the leading figures in looking after the BRDC Rising Stars, British Racing Drivers Club, which was set up by the original Bentley boys, Dr. Benjafield and the rest of them. They will be supporting young drivers in various different categories. Drive-through penalty has been applied to number 29 Into Racing McLaren of Marcus Hogarth for constantly abusing track limits. He's come through and done that. And teams are now out on the pit apron awaiting their charges. Beneath the commentary box, Garage 59 waiting for the McLaren to come in. That's the number 100 car of Andrew Watson that lies in third in GT3. There's the top two in GT3. And there is Andrew Watson in the background. So it is still 5:01. Graham Johnson who leads. 55, Will Chigurtha in second. And in third place at the back of the shot, the dark McLaren car number 100. That's the Garage 59 car of Andrew Watson. And in between them comes Liam Griffin in the number 6 Barwell Lamborghini. Cuts to the inside through Redgate, goes by Will Chigurtha's Ginetta. Look at the cornering abilities that the extra aerodynamics on the car give this Lamborghini. It's not just about the power, it's power and grip. And the more the aerodynamics grind the tyres into the track, the more grip you've got. They go by the Nissan that stays out of the way. Liam Griffin still trying to find a way by the 501 McLaren. Graham Johnson doesn't want to lose ground and lose the lead before they come into the pit lane. Neither of these cars, well, in fact the 55 car does have a 10-second longer stop in the pit lane, so that'll drop them back. And 60 minutes have elapsed. The pit window is open, number 29 comes in. So the leaders now both come in, I'm sure. No, Derek Johnston goes round one more time. Well, they're both being serviced by TF Sport, so the leader, presumably there, was offered the opportunity. In comes Mark Farmer. Graham Johnston leads. 31 is in. So Rick Parfitt will hand over to Seb Morris, and I imagine the 33 Lamborghini will come in as well. Rick runs away from the car. 33 comes by me, so the Lambo is in the pit lane as well. Fuel goes in. Driver change can be done as well. Two hoses, one to let the fuel in one side of the tank, the other one to let the air out the other side, and to catch it so that you can fuel faster. Door open on the Lamborghini, out gets John Minshaw, and then they will start their fueling. And don't forget, the Bentley must spend 20 seconds longer at rest than the standard minimum pit stop time. So the Lamborghini will leave in front. So Seb Morris will be coming from behind, but they'll still be in front in terms of points. Well, wholesale stoppers from the front of the field. Derek Johnston stays out. Charlie Fagg stays out in the 08, the Nissan, but almost everybody else in GT3 and GT4 now in the pit lane. Seb Morris being strapped in by the team into the 31 Team Parker Bentley. 11 in the background, already up in the air, tyres going on. There is still a minimum pit stop time for all these teams to allow for a safe driver change. And that should give them time to do tyres and fuel. Being pushed away is number 11, because coming in quickly is number 1. Johnny Adam there in the red, white and black suit, just in time, because in comes the race leader, Derek Johnston. And into, I think, has come 08 Charlie Fagg. And a long, never-ending wait, it'll seem, for Seb Morris. Off goes John Barnes in number 11. So he will go back out, followed by 33. John Minshaw has handed over the Lamborghini to Phil Keane. And the Bentley is still at rest. No, it's on its way now. 31 with Seb Morris comes out behind the Lamborghini. Don't forget, to guarantee the championship, the Lamborghini needs to be first or second. And if the Bentley wins and the Lamborghini is second, they'll be tied on points. The Lamborghini will have won more races in total, and that will give them the championship on the tie-break. Any situation with the Lamborghini third or lower is going to make it very much harder indeed for them to win the race. So as we heard from Seb Morris at the beginning, the two Aston Martins being in front of the field was a big bonus for the Bentley team, as it meant the Lamborghini first of all had to get by the Aston Martins. Liam Griffin is in. 5:01 has gone back out, the GT4 leader. Number 6 came in as the race leader. Charlie Fagg is in as well in 08. So the Nissan did not, Nissan did lead the race because it was ahead of the number 6 Lamborghini. So the Lamborghini was effectively the leader, but the Nissan was in front of it on track. So now our second round, or lap of pit stoppers if you like, are heading back out. Across the line goes the 33 Lamborghini. And there's the 55 Ginetta. And the 31 Bentley, so there is a big margin for Seb Morris to try and catch Phil Keane in that 33 Lamborghini. And we've yet to see where the Aston Martins are going to end up. 86, the Toyota, in trouble. Now, Stefan Hodget's shown us in the car. That means it has just come out of the pit lane because he took it over and he is pulling out of the way. Is it missing a left front tyre? It is missing a left front tyre. Either the tyre wasn't fully fastened on, or he's hit something and the tyre has come off. My intuition on the outlet from the pits is that the tyre came off and Stefan Hodget's had nowhere left to go. Number 7 Bentley ahead of the 88 Mercedes. There's 5:01, the McLaren, third car in that shot that was our leader in the GT4 class. 1:11 comes in, Anna Velavska. She was in second in GT4 as she pitted. 55, thought we'd seen in the pits, but at the moment, no, we haven't. 55 is out there. Okay, so there is Stefan Hodget's going off, and there is the wheel parting company. So he's turned in to try and turn right, and the wheel has just carried straight on because it wasn't attached to the car. Out comes the Nissan, there is the Lamborghini. And at the moment, Ian Logie yet to stop in the number 7 Bentley, ahead of number 1 Johnny Adam, who will take the lead of the race after all the pit stops have worked out. Anna Velavska is in, University of Bolton running this car, and that was in second place in GT4 because Will Tregurtha has yet to stop in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta that he shares with Stuart Middleton. Pit window is 10 minutes, so by the time they get down to 50 minutes left to go, he will have to stop, which means he needs to come in this lap or the next one, probably. We're on board with Will Tregurtha. So out of Coppice and up to the double right-hander of McLaren. So all you can see is track and sky, corners there, as it is every time. But you can't drive around on what you see in these cars, you drive around on what you know. That's why knowing these circuits well is so important. To see somebody on short finals there coming into East Midlands Airport over the racetrack here at Donington Park. Track often gets faster quite quickly when cars arrive here from free practice to qualifying as they clean off the avgas that is on the track, because we are at the final approach for East Midlands. So lots of holiday makers arriving here on a beautiful sunny Saturday in September. And there's the University of Bolton car waiting for its pit stop time to elapse. Minimum time only, as she hands over to Mike Simpson, or has handed over to Mike Simpson. Will Tregurtha still out in the 55 car and comfortably leading at the moment in the GT4 class because they have yet to stop. However, 2 minutes and 14 seconds, so they will need to think about coming in relatively soon. Track clubs McLaren, Adam Ballon, Adam McKay being warned about track limits, as in is Ian Logie in the number 7 Bentley, and he hands that car over to Callum McLeod. Started the season disappointingly at Alton Park with a big crash with the 88 Mercedes. Claimed victory a couple of race weekends ago for the first time in that number 7 Bentley. Oh, little moment in traffic there for the 31 car of Seb Morris. Pops out behind the McLaren. Number 14 into Racing McLaren into the pits in GT4. And Will Phillips will hand over to Matty Graham. Off goes the number 7 Bentley. See him rumbling out of pit road as the number 31 car continues to try and close down on the leaders. And it looks as though out front there will have been a change between the two Aston Martins. Johnny Adam ahead of John Barnes, number 1 ahead of number 11 by 5 seconds. There's Johnny Adams' number 1 car. Wait, there's John Barnes in the number 11. Don't forget Mark Farman brought that car in front of Derek Johnston. Number 11, though, had a 10-second pit stop penalty to serve for being 3rd in the last race at Brands Hatch in GT3. And our GT4 champions-elect are GT4 race leaders coming in. This is the HHC Motorsport Ginetta Will Chigurtha. They finally persuaded him to come in and hand the car over with just 30 seconds of the pit stop window remaining. So he will hand over to Stuart Middleton. Johnny Adam, John Barnes leading in GT3 and leading in GT4 is still 501, the Ginetta that Graham Johnson has now handed over to Mike Robinson. So last year's champions, instead of having number 1 on the car, because number 1 goes to last year's GT3 champions. That's the TF Sport Aston Martin of Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam. They have 501. Driver change now happening at the 55 HHC Motorsport team. So Stuart Middleton running round, and Will Chigurtha will be in there to strap up the belts. Why can't the driver do it himself? Because it's not a lap and diagonal belt like in your own road car. Racing belts with your helmet on and your hands device on, you can't tip your head down to see where the buckles are. So for somebody else to do it is faster and safer, and they can tighten them up firmly for you as well if the drivers are of a different size, and all drivers are a different size. That is universal. You never get 2 drivers who even look the same size actually being the same size. So belts need tightening up. They've got to be so tight you can barely breathe. 111, the University of Bolton Ginetta, and that is now Mike Simpson, and he is right ahead of the 43 car, and that is Niall Murray now taking over from Jacob Matheson. That's the Century Motorsport. And in fact, that's 36 right behind them. So that is the Abbey Eaton Jake Giddings car. Jake Giddings taking over for Abbey Eaton and trying to find a way around the outside. So this is a battle on track 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th and 6th. 5th and 6th in the GT4 category. So the University of Bolton car going well. Now the 55 car of Will Chigurtha and Stuart Middleton with that extra 10 seconds to serve in the pit lane, and that's why Will Chigurtha stayed out while everybody else was coming in to try and take advantage of as clean a track as possible. There's Rick Parfitt on the left-hand side. He absolutely wiped out after a hot hour in that Bentley. I think we're going to try and get Alex to go down and have a chat with him, but give him another 5 minutes maybe to catch his breath. Team manager of car 86 being summoned to race control as well. And that might be bad news for the Toyota GT86 team. Richard Williams and Stefan Hodgetts. That wheel clearly coming off Hodgetts' car, so he'll want the team manager to explain exactly why. And so will the race directors. Number 7 car, Callum McLeod, now back on track in that Bentley in 8th place, chasing Adam Christodoulou, who's in the 88 Mercedes, but being caught fast by Seb Morris. Seb Morris in 5th place now, and the number 33 Lamborghini of Phil Keane in 3rd spot. So this is why I'm going to now have to refer to my championship points analyzer and see if we can work out from an enormous graph with all sorts of bits and pieces exactly what that means. At the moment, the Bentley, I think, in 5th to the Lamborghini's 3rd, will still take the championship title. But it will be close. Points permutations. This is going to make my head hurt. You watch the screen, and I will try and figure out exactly what it means. So if Parfitt and Morris are 5th, they'll get 15 points, which means that Minshaw and Keane need 2nd to take the title. And they're not in 2nd yet, they're in 3rd. So it comes down to what the 2nd drivers can do. Rick Parfitt Jr. has done his part for the 31 Parker Racing team, and Alex Legui is down in the garage. Let's see how their nerves are. Al, what's Rick got to say?
Bit of a tricky start, but well clawed back. How's the car feeling out there?
Well, I just got hit by both Lambos. I mean, they blatantly had one goal. They wanted to take me off. Minshaw was as robust as ever, and Tordoff just absolutely drove into me. It was absolutely fundamentally ridiculous move by an extremely amateur driver, I've got to say, and he could have wrecked our race, and I believe that's what he tried to do. So luckily, the Bentley's built a strong stuff. M Sport build them strong, and so I set about going after him, and you know, there were blatant team orders. He was holding me up everywhere. He was backing me into the corners. He knew that they had superior traction, and so that's what he was doing. You know, fair play, that's a decent tactic, but I knew I was much quicker than him, and I was just waiting for the opportunity, and I knew that just like at Brands Hatch, I knew it would have to be an opportunistic move. And when we came up to the GT4 under the waved yellow, I saw he came out the throttle, I saw the green, and the moment we hit the green, I launched the car down the inside, flew past the GT4. I have to say that's probably my best move all year. It was absolutely inch perfect, and I think I pressed the radio and just went, yeehaw! And I was very happy with the move. And then after that, I just got my head down and tried to be consistent.
So how's it looking for the championship? What can Seb do out there?
Well, Phil Keane is going absolutely great guns, and he's obviously an absolutely class driver. You know, I wouldn't put it past him to get the win. We've got to stop him win him. I mean, but that's out of our hands now. I did the best job I could. I brought back with a gap. The Nissan's a bit of a fly in the ointment, but they don't score championship points, so technically we're right behind him, and if we can just finish one place behind him, then we're done. I think it might even be all right if we finish 2 places behind him if he doesn't win. So, but there's still 40 minutes to go, and that's a hell of a long time in this. So, you know, it's definitely a race to the end and going to be very nerve-wracking, but all I could say is that this year I've probably driven the best I've ever driven, and that's down to the team who have been incredible this year, and Seb, who's really brought me on as a driver. I've progressed so massively. I've been very happy with consistency this year, and so from my point of view, it's been an epic year, and Team Parker have been amazing. My sponsors, all of you, are just incredible, and it was such a last-minute deal to be on the grid, and so to be here is just fantastic, and you know, to be in with a chance of winning would be amazing. So I'm not going to count my chickens yet, but as we all know, anything can happen, but it's nice to have given Seb a chance.
Thanks, Rick.
Well done indeed, Rick Parfitt, an epic stint, and he's absolutely right. The move out of Redgate down the Crater Curves, scything around Liam Griffin and a slower GT4 car was a class move by any driver. Now his teammate Seb Morris, 5th place on the road, but as Rick pointed out, the car in front, the 08 Nissan, invisible for points. So that means the Lamborghini is in 3rd, and in terms of points, the Bentley is in 4th. Now the Lamborghini is in 3rd place on the road. Phil Keane, 1 minute 28.4 last time round. The Aston Martin's in front. Johnny Adam, John Barnes, 1 minute 29.2. So Phil Keane and Lamborghini is lapping faster than the Astons. But the Aston Martins are very good on their tyres on the long runs on this circuit. It's not a hugely abrasive track, doesn't wear the tyres brutally, and the Aston Martin seems to be fairly gentle on its tyres. The Lamborghini, we know, is as well. 4th place, the Nissan GTR, invisible for points, so effectively 4th is Seb Morris. The gap, though, Seb Morris was about 13 seconds behind Phil Keane last time round. In fact, over 21 seconds rather, so that is predominantly because of their extra time in the pit stops. So they need to try and close the gap as much as possible, just in case something else happens. At the moment, it is finely poised, as they are now, with the Lamborghini only in 3rd and the Bentley effectively in 4th in terms of point scoring. The Team Parker Bentley will win the championship. So as of now, if nothing else happens, then the 31 car will be champions, Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt. And Rick will be the first man ever to become a GT4 champion and then the GT3 champion, the overall British champion. So Parfitt and Morris at the moment will take the title from Minshaw and Keane as it stands. Now, if the Minshaw and Keane Lamborghini gets in between or in front of the Aston Martins, then we have to start doing a bit more, and then in some cases a lot more maths. At the moment, Johnny Adam leads by 6 seconds from John Barnes. There is John Barnes. Johnny Adam already across the line and down into Redgate. Gap now down to 5.9. Lamborghini behind by 5.4 from John Barnes. Last time round, Johnny Adam, 129.1 in the lead. John Barnes, 129.1 in second. Phil Keane, 129.1 in third. In the GT4 battle, this is the 55 car of Stuart Middleton. He's right up behind Adam Mackay in the 72 McLaren, and this is for second in GT4. So out front, Mike Robinson in the 501 car that he took over from Graham Johnson, the car that was leading at the pit stops. Don't forget, the 55 car had a longer pit stop because it was on the podium last time out at Brands Hatch. They were 10 seconds longer than the standard. David Patterson, Joe Osborne in the 56 McLaren, 15 seconds longer because they were second, nearly won in Brands Hatch, second in the end. And the car that earned the 20 seconds, Macmillan AMR, number 42 Aston Martin, not here this weekend, so nobody had to serve 20 seconds in the pits. But the 55 car came in, having run long as the race leader, then dropped back to a tight third place. Behind the 88 car of Adam Christodoulou, AMG factory driver, loaned to Richard Neary and the Roll Centre Racing team. And there is the number 100 McLaren, Sandy Mitchell at the wheel of the Black Bull Garage 59 car. And that car was battling with the 55 car when Andrew Watson was driving it. And they were hanging on for second in the GT4 class. Well, they're now down into fourth place, but not far behind the battle for third as the leaders go by them. Johnny Adam, John Barnes. Johnny Adam has gone by, John Barnes coming. Phil Keane behind them in the Lamborghini. Ooh, and again, you've got to be careful here in traffic. Here comes the 55 car looking to have a look. Stuart Middleton on Adam Mackay. He got a good run out of Coppice. Mackay just a little held up going into Coppice as the leader went through. And Stuart Middleton couldn't quite take advantage. And again, watch the McLaren pull away. Down the straight, it's got plenty of grunt off the corner and down the straight, hasn't it? And then the Ginetta uses its nimble handling to try and close in the twisty stuff. Down the gearbox it comes, sequential gear shift in all these cars, full racing gearboxes and engines, full racing suspension, less developed aerodynamically, less developed in terms of engine power and so on than the GT3 cars. So they're slower in all categories, in power, in handling, in downforce and grip. But nevertheless, a long way ahead in terms of speed to the road car equivalents. Through goes number 11, John Barnes. And there is the 72 McLaren. So 72 car run by Track Club. Adam Ballon started it, Adam Mackay behind him, taking over from him, and currently in second place, hanging on in front of Stuart Middleton. And again, look at the Ginetta through the old hairpin, really sized through there. The McLaren had to slow hard, deal with that corner, mid-corner understeer before he could get back on the power. That's where the Ginetta really hurls in behind him. And again, same thing here, can't quite get on the power as quickly as the Ginetta does. The Ginetta closes up out of the corners and into the corners as well. Right behind is Phil Keane in the green and red Lamborghini. We saw Stuart Middleton there move well out of the way to allow the championship contender to come through. Middleton and Chigurtha in that 55 Ginetta, they've got their own championship battle, but savvy enough racers to know that so has somebody else. Now their championship for the HHC Motorsport team is pretty much decided, barring some freak incident that robs them of a whole handful of points, which is unlikely in the extreme. They will be the GT4 champions. So now it's just about whether or not they can move up to second, maybe potentially win the race, but other people have got more important and still live championship battles to deal with, so they're being very savvy about that. Callum McLeod in the number 7 Bentley, right in front of the 31 car of Seb Morris, and they right up behind the number 8 car. So Callum McLeod unlapping himself on the number 8 Nissan, and don't forget that that 08 car, Charlie Fagg and now Ben Green, not visible for championship points. So the fact that it's actually physically in front of Seb Morris doesn't matter, because it's not going to score any points. So Seb Morris is effectively in fourth. Crikey, that Nissan looks like a handful off the corner. However, Seb Morris goes through, and it may actually be that the Nissan's a handful off the corner because Ben Green moved out wide to allow Seb Morris to go through in Redgate, and then was on the dusty, dirty part of the track, and there's less grip, and so the car's wriggling around. Could just be that he made a mistake and the car's a bit of a handful anyway. However, we'll wait and see. Seb Morris is now in front. Looking back from Seb Morris, there is the Nissan. And again, like Charlie Fagg in the first part of the race in that car, the deal here for Ben Green is don't be the guy that ruins the championship. Don't hit the Bentley, don't knock it off, sit behind it, let it go. There's a car in front of you that's trying to win a championship. Don't get involved. Drive-through penalty suspended by the stewards for the 36 Ginetta of Abby Eaton and Jake Giddings. We saw them earlier on, didn't we, in a battle with 111 of Mike Simpson. Simpson stays in front of them in 5th place in GT4. And here is the battle for second in GT4. Right behind, in fact, second, third and fourth all together. And the 55 white and blue Ginetta being passed down the inside by Sandy Mitchell in the 100 McLaren. And there's a view that Will Jagurtha will recognise, because his teammate Stuart Middleton has now got it. Will Jagurtha spent most of the first part of the race following exactly the same car, that 100 McLaren. Don't forget, this is not the lead, this is the battle for second, third and fourth. And we're now down in 4th place with Stuart Middleton. Adam Mackay, the first of the 2 McLarens, the white one. And that car doesn't look as well resolved in any way as Sandy Mitchell's Black Bull Garage 59 car. Darker car, definitely looking like it's less of a handful. And he's about to prove that, I think, closing in from behind. Looking to go down the inside, not quite yet. Not into Foggy's S's. But as we sit behind and watch, here he comes. He's going to send it down the inside. No, he's not. Not quite close enough either in the Melbourne hairpin. Now he is trying to get the cut back underneath, but that will only leave him on the outside for the next corner, which is a tight left-hander. Now he's going to try and look at the inside. No, not close enough there either. He's got a little bit more speed than Adam Mackay in that white McLaren, but not much and not enough to be able to pass easily, which means now he's got to work out a hard grind to get by. As they come across the line, behind them you can see the number 7 Bentley of Callum McLeod, and not far behind him is Seb Morris in the number 31 car. Phil Keane still in 3rd, 21 seconds ahead of Seb Morris, and the lap times are very, very equal. So GT4 battle continues as the Bentley shoves its way in between. Headlights flashing on both Team Parker Racing Bentleys. Slightly different liveries on the 2 cars, but they are teammates run by the same crew. And there is the number 7 on board now, trying to work his way through with the 31 car. Out to Coppice, up to the double right-hander at McLean's. And now chasing the throttle through the second pass of the corner. Here we go. Good exit onto the long, fast back straight. But as they get onto that straight, past the exhibition centre, the McLaren just pulls away from the Ginetta, which then can only haul its way back up through the chicane. And the McLaren with that straight line speed advantage. 31 Bentley has gone through. There is the Nissan, the 08 car. Dropped a little further back. He manages to find his way happily past Stuart Middleton. now up to the battle for second place. 5:01, Mike Robinson still some way in front of this group. Not seeing him in the same shot. Robinson comes across the line, and the gap is 15.8 seconds. So that's a happy margin ahead of the battling McLarens. And of course, as the McLarens battle each other, saw the 100 car there of Sandy Mitchell have a bit of a second thought about whether it wanted to turn in or not. Through goes number 6 car of Sam Tordoff. So in fact, Rick Parfitt thought it was Tordoff attacking him or holding him up early in the race. It wasn't, it was Liam Griffin in the number 6 car. The GT4 Championship, the 55 car, Stuart Middleton. Now with their main rivals out of the race, they are almost locked in for the title. Stuart Middleton's doing the driving. Is it nervous times, though, for his teammate Will Tregurtha? Alex Legui is with him.
Is it nervous times? Good question, Haven. Will, only you can answer it. Is it nervous times? How are you feeling after Lanham were taken out?
Obviously, it's not good that they got taken out. I do feel really sorry for them, but I think we're just really good, to be honest. Can't wait. Really can't wait.
Very diplomatic answer. A bit jumpy, yeah. I think nervous is the right answer. Youngest pairing, you guys are absolutely flying. What a year it's been for you. Very consistent.
Yeah, it's been really good. I think it's only our 3rd year in cars as well, so it's perfect, to be honest. HHC has been faultless all year. I can't put anything past them. The car's been perfect, so it's really been the fastest Ginetta out there, so I'm just so pleased.
Yeah, I'm very pleased for you. Well done, boys.
Thank you.
Well, with the points advantage coming in, you know, you can't be sure of anything in motor racing, and they absolutely weren't counting their chickens. And you can absolutely understand as well why Will Tregurtha is on tenterhooks right now, because the race isn't over. There's no time now yet, really, to release that tension. Half an hour from now, though, when the checkered flag is out and they come across the line, wherever they are placed, 2nd, 3rd, 4th in GT4, it'll be enough. They will have a championship in their pocket, and that will be an enormous result for them, and that's when the emotion will really start to hit them. Well, Stuart Middleton dropping away a little bit from the McLarens. You wonder whether he's just had a word with himself and said, OK, let's let them battle. Let's not get anything silly going on. So here we are at the Melbourne hairpin, right behind the 72 car of Adam McKay, comes off the corner very slowly. Well, that's not good news. However, again, in the back of their minds, even if there's a slight issue with the car, their closest championship rivals, their race finished in the gravel, they cannot score any more points. So effectively, it was a 2-horse race. Only one car, only the Lannan racing car, could have caught them. And now that David Pittard and Alex Reeves' car is not going to score any points, they cannot be caught. So they want to finish the race. Of course they want to finish the race. Do they want to be on the podium? Of course they want to be on the podium. Will it rob them of the championship if they're not? No, it won't. 28 minutes to go. John Barnes leads. Johnny Adam leads. John Barnes you're looking at in 2nd place. In the chrome blue and white number 11 TF Sport Aston Martin. There is the number 1 car for the last time. Wearing the number 1 plate, Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam, last year's British GT champions. And it was this car, the 33 Lamborghini Huracan, that came to Donington Park last year, trying to claim the championship, that in the end lost out to the number 1, or to the Aston Martin, the TF Sport team. And this year, it looks as though they may yet lose out to Team Parker Bentley. So 2 different champions in 2 years. And in both cases, it looks as though the runners-up may well be the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini duo. Well, John Minshaw had a very strong start to the race. Didn't see him hit Rick Parfitt, but Rick clearly felt it. However, Minshaw got in between the Aston Martins. He was determined to try and go out and win this race. And then big spin from him cost them a bit of time. However, with the Bentley, there's Rick on the right-hand side, is Tim Harvey, former British Touring Car champion. Rick's partner on the right-hand side, and a massive support to him, I know. And Rick You know, it's not over. With the HHC Motorsport team, they had a big points lead, and their rivals went off in a gravel early in the race. So it's sort of done. It's sort of decided, and the race is whatever it is. With the Bentley, if they don't finish, they're not champions. With the Lamborghini, if they don't finish, they can't be champions. And somewhere in between there, not finishing and where you finish determines how the championship is going to be decided. So there's no doubt at all, there's hardly anybody breathing in either garage. At the moment, slight advantage with the Bentley. It's behind on the road, it's in front in the points. But it only takes one mistake in traffic by someone else's loose wheel, debris, anything can rob you of a chance to finish a race. And if you don't finish, you don't get to be champion. Number 29 getting another drive-through penalty for track limits, and that is the Into racing car of Marcus Hogarth and Jesse Antela. So I think that car got pinged early on in the race, getting pinged again. Abby Eaton and Jake Giddings, they had a drive-through penalty suspended and are continuing to abuse track limits. So their team manager has been asked to report to race control, where a strip will be torn off him. Adam Mackay in third place in the 72 McLaren, and suddenly right back behind him is Stuart Middleton. And in fact, this is now the battle for, it's still a battle for third place. There's the number 56 McLaren going across the line, and that is David Patterson and Joe Osborne's Tolmer Motorsport car. And this is the battle then for third place. So last time round, the 100 McLaren at 138.7, and 55 Stuart Middleton at 138.5. So they've got ahead of Sandy Mitchell. Stayed ahead of Sandy Mitchell, but the car in front, Adam Mackay, 138.5, same as Stuart Middleton. Middleton caught him on the last lap, and it looks as though Mackay having a bit of a problem with a wayward rear end on the car. Through goes Adam Christodoulou. Makes no mistakes there, does he? But don't forget what we saw before. 29, the Into racing car comes in for its second drive-through. What we saw before was the McLaren pulling away down the straight off the corner. It can't get the grip off the corner, so whether it's run into an electronic issue with its traction control or not remains to be seen. Now it starts to ease away as Johnny Adam, the race leader, goes by. But you sort of sense that either Stuart Middleton has sort of re-girded his loins and had another attack after letting the tyres rest for a few laps, because following another car directly behind with cars that need clean airflow for their aerodynamics to work and save the tyres, might have been overheating the car, might have been overheating the tyres or the brakes. He might have just backed off for a lap or two to let everything cool down and then have another attack. Still on for third place then. It is Ginetta chasing McLaren, and again McLaren quicker off the corner this time, but in the mid-speed sweepers, it does seem as though the McLaren is a bit of a handful. Into Redgate they come. Right behind them is John Barnes. He'll shoot by any second. Down the Craner curves. There's John Barnes in the background. So through the Craners down to the old hairpin. And this is the track that was raced on in the 1930s in Grand Prix by the Mercedes and auto unions that dominated the last years of Grand Prix racing before World War II. And certainly if you were in an ERA or something at that stage, then the Mercedes and auto unions would have gone by you the way that a GT3 car is going by a GT4 car, and probably quite a lot quicker as well, even on the loose surface through farmyards and stone gates and everything else. On board still with the 55 car, and Stuart Middleton, I'm sure, will be taking no chances here, no half lunges. He doesn't need to pass. He wants to finish the race, I'm sure. You don't start a race in the hope of ending up in a gravel trap. You start a race in the hope of finishing it as strongly as you can. Through comes Phil Keane in the 33 Lamborghini. Again, watch it off the corner. Just leaves the McLaren for dead. And that's not a factor of Lamborghini versus McLaren, that's GT3 versus GT4. Look at the gap now from second, John Barnes in the blue car, to third, Phil Keane in the red and white car. Gap now down to 3.2 seconds. Phil Keane last time round, 1 minute 29.2. John Barnes 1:30.0. Traffic cost Barnes nearly a second. Johnny Adam 1:29.1 in the lead Aston, so that's how quick the TF Sport Astons can go. Johnny Adam might, you'd argue, have a fractional advantage in pace over John Barnes, but not 9/10 of a second on every lap. So Barnes losing out in traffic and Phil Keane trying to close. And if he moves up into second place, Minshaw and Keane are in second and Parfitt and Morris are in third, we have a points advantage for Minshaw and Keane, who will be champions, because they will be tied on points at 204.5, and with more wins, 5 versus 3, Minshaw and Keane would be champions. So, if Phil Keane gets by John Barnes, and Seb Morris remains where he is in 4th place, then it will be Minshaw and Keane who take the championship title. However, it's ifs, buts and maybes, and at the moment, the Aston Martins still remain the strongest allies for the Bentleys. Not that they are actively doing anything to help the Bentley team, but just by virtue of the fact that they're in front of the Lamborghini, means the Lamborghini can only at best at the moment score points for third. But again, an incident in traffic that takes out one of the Lamborghinis, and suddenly everything changes. A penalty for exceeding, one of the Aston Martins rather, penalty for exceeding the track limits for one of the Astons, and suddenly everything changes. And where is Seb Morris? Well, here's our GT4 battle at the top of the hill. Seb Morris coming across the line now, 33 seconds behind Phil Keane, so the gap has not closed at all. Phil Keane last time round 28.8, Seb Morris a 30.0. And the gap, which was 21 seconds after the pit stops, has now opened out to 33 seconds. Phil Keane has pulled away from Seb Morris. And if Phil Keane gets in between the Aston Martins in the remaining 20 minutes of this race, 19 minutes of this race, then suddenly the championship changes dramatically, because then Seb Morris also has to get ahead of one of the Aston Martins to finish third behind second-placed Lamborghini. That would give the Bentley team the title. The closer Phil Keane gets to John Barnes, the closer in the balance the championship hangs, and we may be into mathematics territory. Stuart Middleton again, right up behind Adam Mackay, having a little look on the inside at Goddard's, not quite close enough. He is still really pressing the McLaren. Leading in the class is the 501 McLaren, Mike Robinson, the outgoing GT4 champion, driving that car. And we ride with the incoming champion. Outgoing GT3 champion is Johnny Adam and his teammate Derek Johnston. And they, in car number 1, lead the race. Well, Derek will see his title go to someone today, but what about the race? He had a great first stint. He's with Alex Legui.
Derek, 2016 champions. You rather like Donington, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. It's my favourite track, and everybody else knows it as well. I don't know why. I don't know what it's about this place, but I just love it and always do well here. So we always come here this weekend with the intention of a win. That's what we come for. I messed up a little bit in qualifying yesterday, so I had a talk with myself last night and put that right this morning. And then in the race with my teammate Mark, you know, we didn't have to pass him because he had a 10-second penalty. So the plan was always just to stick with him on his rear bumper and just bring it into half-time and then give it to Johnny, and job done, really. The car's been great. You know, TF Sport have done a great job this weekend. The Aston Martin goes always well around here, so it really suits the car, this track. So yeah, up to now, all good.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, while you're hearing from Derek Johnson, what he didn't see is what we've seen, and that is Joe Osborne out of second place in GT4 in the 56 McLaren. Well, he's gone off into the gravel trap. You can see the marshals trying to rescue him, and that is swapped into him at Coppice. Don't forget, when we're following the 72 car of Adam McKay, we're turning into Coppice there. See how loose the white McLaren was, trying to drive it out. It's only succeeded in digging itself in. Now then, yellow flags out at Coppice, turn 7 in race director parlance. We saw the marshals going out in their orange suits to try and help him out. Not able to do so. That is firmly buried. It's going to require a tow. And with 16 minutes to go, that might bring out the safety car. Now, what does that mean? If the safety car comes out and picks up leader Johnny Adam, then the rest of the field will close up behind. That means that Phil Keane will be right behind John Barnes for second place, but it means that the 32 seconds he's got ahead of Seb Morris will vanish. And then Seb Morris will be much closer to the Lamborghini, and potentially with potential to get by if the Lamborghini should move up the order. All that's ifs, buts and maybes. While we're about it, by the way, you'll see the marshals all the way round the circuit here. They're all past the British Motorsport Marshals Club, BMMMC, and alongside some of them, on some of the marshals posts, you'll see people wearing orange tabards. Now, they came on a training day yesterday with the marshals for qualifying and practice, and they're here today on their first race day as well, learning the job. So a whole bunch of new marshals being trained here by one of Britain's leading marshals clubs. There's 2 or 3 major marshals clubs around the country, and they supply the marshals who are trackside, in the pit lane and everywhere else, keeping racing going. All unpaid volunteers, but if you're a motor racing fan and you want to get involved and you haven't got the money to be a driver, or you're not an engineer, or you can't tell one end of a spanner from another, find your nearest marshals club, look online, go and contact them about being a motor racing marshal. You will not get a better hands-on, close-up view of marshalling, and you will be one of the men and women in orange responsible for keeping motor racing going. So thank you to everybody who puts on an orange suit to keep motor racing happening, to keep drivers and spectators and fans safe. And also thank you to the clubs for encouraging new blood to come in and wear the orange suits. Now, race directors are telling us there will be yellow flags out at Coppice and a live snatch. That means they're going to get a tractor in there, pull the McLaren out of the gravel trap without the need for a safety car, and hopefully that means that the race will continue pretty much unabated. Everybody has to slow down in the yellow flag zones to keep the marshals safe, but it's the same for everybody, and that means we won't lose our race behind the safety car. And that's good news, perhaps, for Phil Keane, as he closes in 3rd place on John Barnes. Last time round took 0.6 of a second out of the Aston Martin in front of him. The gap is now down to 2.1 seconds and closing. Johnny Adam leads, but there is the danger zone for the Team Parker Bentley team. The blue and white Aston. Ricky Christodoulou is between them in the 88 Mercedes. But again, Martin Short will be on the radio just confirming championship contender right behind you. And so Ricky Christodoulou, who's already gone a lap down to the leaders in the car he shares with Richard Neary, will not hold up the Lamborghini deliberately. Where as soon as the Lamborghini gets within range and wants to make a move, and that will probably be in the first corner, then Christodoulou will let him go through. Adam's a very professional racing driver. 72 McLaren comes down the pit lane, not quite sure why that track club car has come in. Did that have a penalty? Did I mention that earlier? May well have done. Into the pit lane has come the Mercedes, so that has potentially put an end to the 72 and to the Mercedes race, the 88 car. What it has done is move Stuart Middleton in the HHC Ginetta up to 2nd in GT4, behind only Mike Robinson in the 501 car, but he is 25 seconds behind. Well, the 88 car no longer a hardship for Phil Keane. He won't have to get by him. And Rick Parfitt, friends, family, sponsors all around him, very nervy now because Phil Keane has the potential to win the championship for himself and John Minshaw. And at the moment, Seb Morris is not in a position to do much about it. John Barnes in the number 11 Aston Martin is the man who holds the key here. In fact, he's not. It's Phil Keane in the 33 Lamborghini that holds the key. But if he comes calling, John Barnes is going to have to be very clean about defending second place, because again, he wants to be second, but the car that will be attacking him wants to win the championship. And Barnes, as a former champion, knows what that means. So he's going to have to be very, very cautious about the way he deals with that. He's just gone by Mike Simpson in the 111 Ginetta that now lies in 4th place in the GT4 class. Down the straight comes the Lamborghini, turning into Red Gate, and the gap now down to 2.0 seconds behind John Barnes. So it is getting closer and closer. Phil Keane moves in front of the Aston Martin in the remaining 11 minutes. Then the Bentley needs to be third to guarantee the title. If the Bentley is in 4th place, then we get a points tie. Now, if Phil Keane finishes 2nd and Morris is 4th in the Bentley wins. Okay, so that's the way the maths is. I was having trouble reading the multifaceted points table. So, yeah, we've got the slide rule out and taking off our shoes and socks to try and do the adding up. However, Phil Keane, if he can catch John Barnes and pass him, then all he needs to do is worry about something happening to Johnny Adam. So at the moment, 31 Team Parker Bentley in 4th place. Again, they also are worrying about what might come their way in the race, not in terms of what they can do or what they do, what somebody else does. Johnny Adam across the line to complete lap 72. John Barnes now across the line. Phil Keane follows now, 1.9 seconds behind. Keane is only 8.8 behind the leader, and he took 4 tenths out of the leader last time round. Now, what's happened to that McLaren? There's a tyre gone down. Is that the number 100 car of Sandy Mitchell going very slowly down the crane of curves? Left front puncture. And that is going to be a real handicap to everybody, because they'll see a car in front as they come off a corner and they'll expect it to be going at a certain speed, and suddenly they'll be upon it as if it's absolutely stationary. So final 10 minutes, trouble for Sandy Mitchell in the Black Bull Garage 59, McLaren number 100. The team are out in the pit lane beneath me, ready to receive it. Here is your GT4 race leader. Haven't seen him in a long while. 501 Mike Robinson. Last year's champions driving a Ginetta. And this year converting after the start of the season into the McLaren. It's taken them a couple of races to really get on top of the car, particularly when it wouldn't start for them at Brands Hatch. But now, qualified strongly. They're very happy with it in qualifying. You can see how much the car moves around on its tyres, though. The GT4 car, definitely not as well planted as the GT3 McLaren would be. 570S GT4. But that, I think, will be their mount for next season. They seem to be liking it a lot here at Donington Park. Whether they can win the last race of their championship season with it, then you've got to look at that and go, yeah, right, we're having that car for next year. And they will continue to develop and come back next year, hopefully in British GT, and try and reclaim that title. Second place in the GT4 category, our champions-elect. Will Tregurtha started the 55 car. Stuart Middleton currently at the wheel. Through goes race leader Johnny Adam. There's the car now that's on the podium in 3rd place, started by Anna Walewska, the University of Bolton run and sponsored Ginetta, up to 3rd place with Mike Simpson at the wheel. Century Motorsport running it, but University of Bolton engineering students part of their crew. And a great hands-on practical way of learning their trade while studying. Tyre change at the front. Airgun didn't want to come off the 100 car. Andrew Watson started it. They were in the top 3 with Andrew and with Sandy Mitchell. But that puncture, again on a little bit of debris, possibly from somebody else's incident. not great news. They're coming out of the pits now as the race leader comes across the line. And that just goes to show that any of these cars could pick up a problem from something that's nothing of their own making. Leaders almost together in one shot. They were covered by 8.8 seconds at the line last time. It's gone out to 9.1, but the gap second to third has not grown. Johnny Adam pulled away. 1:29.2 a couple of laps ago he pulled away. This time 1:29.2 for him, 1:29.1 for John Barnes, 1:28.8 for Phil Keane in the chasing Lamborghini. Keane is consistently quicker. If this car had come into the pit lane in second place as it was on the opening lap, we might be looking at a very different race now. The 20-second penalty then would really have hurt the Team Parker Racing Bentley. It really hurt them anyway in terms of being able to match their close championship rivals for pace. The Bentley in fourth place and the Lamborghini at the moment still in third. So the points advantage is with the Bentley pair. The Lamborghini can do nothing but chase. 5 minutes and 44 seconds remain. Phil Keane is close, but is he close enough? He only took 2/10 out of John Barnes last time round. And Barnes, having started, or having had the car start in pole position with Mark Farmer, would love to finish at least in second place. I think he knows he's not going to catch Johnny Adam now. Johnny Adams just set the fastest lap of the race for the #1 car, not the overall fastest lap, which was set by Phil Keane in the 33 Lamborghini. And that was 30 laps ago when he was fresh out of the pits on new rubber. There is the Bentley in fourth place, Seb Morris. And he is keeping pace with the lead group, but he is not catching them. And in the end, he doesn't need to catch them as long as he stays in front of Sam Tordoff in the #6 Lamborghini. Now, Tordoff is not going quite as quickly as Seb Morris, or didn't on the last lap. The gap was 6.1 seconds back to the Lamborghini, and the #6 car is the one now that could upset the Apple car. Tordoff comes across the line at 6.7 seconds now behind the 31 Bentley. So the gap continues to increase over fifth place. At the moment, carrying this basket of hopes and dreams is Seb Morris, and in front of him, Phil Keane sprinting as hard as he can to catch the Aston Martins that have been 1-2 throughout the race. 4 minutes on the clock, and that'll give us 3 more laps here at Donington Park. Maybe not even that, because as we watch the Bentley heading out onto the back straight, the leader Johnny Adams already across the line. 3 minutes 50 to 1 minute 30 laps is 3 minutes, so it will be 3 laps after this. They're on their anti-penultimate, no, they're on their anti-penultimate lap, so 3 to go. John Barnes in second, gap down to 1.4 seconds now to Phil Keane in third. It's a valiant chase for Phil Keane, but he's not going to get there, is he? Phil Keane also drives in the Michelin GT3 Cup with Limoux in his Mercedes, and there's a clashing race this weekend at Spa-Francorchamps. Limoux with stand-in driver loaned to him by AMG Mercedes, Dominic Baumann, ended up with victory at Spa-Francorchamps yesterday. Phil Keane, I'm afraid, can't get victory here unless something very odd happens inside the final 3 minutes in the last 2 laps of the race. But if something were to happen and the Lamborghini ended up on the top step of the podium, with it would come the championship title. Towards us comes the 501 of Mike Robinson. Past him again will go John Barnes in the number 11 car, and if he can't get by on the straight, and he does, then he loses another little fraction to Phil Keane. Phil Keane's going to come up behind the Ginetta into Redgate. Ginetta's going to try and stay wide offline between Redgate and Hollywood. Is there room for the Lamborghini? He's going to have to go the long way around the outside, just to have a little feather on the throttle before he spears down the crane of curves. The gap was down to 1.4 seconds. But that gap will have opened up just a fraction because John Barnes was blessed with a tiny little bit more room in traffic there. Caught the GT4 leading McLaren. I said Ginetta, but it's a McLaren. Just at the right time going into Redgate. Johnny Adam leads, 77 laps completed. This is lap 78 of the full Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Behind him, this battle. John Barnes, 7.8 seconds behind the leader. There is Johnny Adam, coming up behind the 08 Nissan, and past the penalised Ginetta, which has had at least one, and starting to think possibly even two drive-throughs, that 36 car. Johnny Adam will scythe by the Nissan this time, hopefully. Yeah, Nissan stays offline. Again, Ben Green doing a good job with that team, running the car hard and fast, or as hard and fast as it will go, but also not getting in the way of anybody else's race. Johnny Adam leads, 7.3 at the line last time round. It is the final lap of the race. It is the final lap of 2 hours of the Donington Decider. It is the final lap of the championship. 2.5 miles of the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Johnny Adam is on his way to victory. The outgoing champions, Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam, started on the front row of the grid and were in second place all the way through to the pit stops. Johnny Adam is going to take the #1 car through to victory to round out their year as champions. Behind will be John Barnes and Phil Keane, close at the line, turning into Redgate for the final time. Seb Morris on the 31 Bentley. Onto the Melbourne Loop for the final time is the race leader. The GT4 car in front will stay just about out of the way. That is the Singleton Porsche, Team Parker Racing running that as well for Nick Jones and Scott Morvan, and trouble for the McLaren in front. No dramas though for John Barnes. That's why he didn't pass the Porsche, because the yellow flags were flying. Checkered flag is out for, beg your pardon, for Johnny Adam. He claims victory. It is a TF Sport 1-2, an Aston Martin 1-2. John Barnes in second place. A valiant charge. Phil Keane on the podium in third, but it is not enough for the Barwell Lamborghini. 501, Mike Robinson is going to claim GT4 win. The outgoing champions win in GT3. The outgoing champions win in GT4. And our new champions will be crowned. Rick Parfitt and Parker Racing go to the pit wall. They're waiting for the 31 Bentley, and right behind the new champions in GT4 as well. Stuart Middleton in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta. The champions will come across the line together. The 31 Bentley wins in GT3, and the 55 Ginetta wins the GT4 title. Rick Parfitt becomes the first man ever to win British GT4 and GT3 crowns. Congratulations to Team Parker, congratulations to Seb Morris and to Rick Parfitt. Congratulations to our race winners as well. Derek Johnston and Johnny Adam in GT3, and in GT4, Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson. Oh my goodness me, a massive, massive sigh of relief. It is done. The champions in GT4 HHC Motorsport, Will Chigurtha and Stuart Middleton. P1 2017 champions, and our GT3 champions, Team Parker, Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris.
Yes!
Yeah, just another race. Just another race. Seb Morris in tears, Rick Parfitt in tears. I think that was Tim Harvey in tears as well. And why wouldn't you be? A massive outpouring of emotion. T. Parker with a great selection of Bentleys outside their team hospitality unit, including the Speed 8 that won the 24 Hours of Le Mans, including 2 blower Bentleys and a whole host of new Bentley road cars. It is victory for the final race of the season, though, for TF Sport. A 1-2 result in qualifying, a 1-2 result in the race. Derek Johnson and Johnny Adam victorious. And 501, the McLaren from Optimum Motorsport and PWM Expo Racing. Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson, the outgoing champions, also win the final race of the season. Oh, Seb Morris coming into the pit lane. There's Rick. Catch him, Brownie, catch him. And the Bentley coming past us, coming past the team. It's just about to appear in shot. He's going to catch Rick before they get to the podium. And that's where they're all headed. Now he knows who's behind him. He can hear the grumbling bellow of the big Bentley GT3. But the emotional last half an hour or so, when it was within their grasp, but until you are parked under the podium and you are stood above your car celebrating, then you can't take anything for granted. They didn't have a podium finish in the race, but in the end, they didn't need it. Your new GT3 champions, Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt. Time for Seb to get his helmet off. I think he might want a minute or two, actually, because clearly there was a tear or two, bit of dust in his eye, clearly, on the slowing down lap, when it all came home. And for Stuart Middleton, his teammate Will Tregurtha, well done. GT4 champions. Leading coming in. Is it easier than hunting? Well, when you've got 37.5 points in hand, yes, it is. But really, it plays on the nerves. Listen to them. Listen to how spent they are. And that's not just the physical effect of the race. Aston Martin 1-2. Derek Johnson, Johnny Adam ahead of Mike Farmer and John Barnes. Mark Farmer and John Barnes. With Minshaw and Keane, Lamborghini in third ahead of Parfitt and Morris. Championship going to Parfitt and Morris. And our GT4 winners, Johnson and Robinson, the outgoing champions, winning in both classes. And the new champions, Tregurtha and Middleton, finishing in second place in the number 55 HHC Motorsport Ginetta. Well, beautiful conditions for racing, and it ran almost green all the way through. Here are our new champions in both categories.
Seb Morris, Rick Parfitt Jr., Team Parker Racing, you boys are the 2017 British GT champions. What a race.
That wasn't bad, was it? Rick drove amazingly. Doing Griffin down Craner curves.
Yeah, a bit of a tricky start, Rick. Talk us through it.
A tricky start? Well, I just got hit by every Lambo. And Liam tried to drive me off the circuit, essentially. That's what it felt like. And but luckily, M Sport built this beautiful Bentley, very, very strong. And she held together absolutely brilliantly. Just got her head down, so hot in the car. But, you know, hey, let's not talk about the race. I just want to say, like, you know, Team Parker have been just incredible this year. They've brought me on as a driver. Seb's brought me on as a driver. As a pairing, I couldn't want for a better teammate. He's been ballistic for the last 2 years. He's absolutely world class. And, you know, I've really benefited from having him as a partner. The team has been amazing. Our sponsors getting us here, we were last minute. We literally only were going to say that we were going to do it like a couple of weeks before the season started. So this was just so last minute and so tight on budget. And we're true Pro-Am. We both brought budget to the team to come and do this drive, you know, and so this must be the best embodiment of Pro-Am racing, and, you know, and what a competitive championship it is. And I have to say, Minshaw and Keane are an absolutely class act. They've driven hard all year, and Bar will always take it to the last round of the championship. They're a great, great team. So congratulations to Mark, and I'm very sorry that you're not going to get that letter from Dominic Carley.
Boys, congratulations. Get yourself up to the podium. Very, very, very well done.
Guys, it's great to meet you. Give it a celebration.
Well, congratulations. to both of them. Stefano Domenicali, the man who hands out the letters, presumably, for the awards trophy. We'll wait and see how these guys celebrate. I'm sure they'll be added onto the podium after we see our top 3 go out. But our GT4 champions, Will Jagurtha and Stuart Middleton, finishing second, will be on the podium anyway. So second in the GT4 and the overall title winners for 2017. So you can see the 111 Ginetta, in the end, didn't quite get onto the podium. They were just behind Niall Murray and Jacob Matthewson's 43 Ginetta. That ends up in 3rd place. So 111 in 4th in the GT4 category. But it's 501, the outgoing champions who are victorious, Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson. So a year ago, we were crowning our GT4 race winners as champions here. And a year ago, we were also crowning our GT3 race winners today as the champions, Derek Johnson and Johnny Adam. It was tight at the start, the Lamborghini getting in between the 2 Aston Martins as Derek Johnston leaned a little bit on Mark Farmer, but problems for John Minshaw, spinning out of contention at the front of the field. 53 Nissan backing itself off into the barriers. And then the key moment in the race, perhaps, was where the Bentley Rick Parfitt got by Liam Griffin in the Lamborghini. Lannon Racing's championship challenge ended in the gravel. That meant the 55 HHC Motorsport Ginetta was a shoo-in for the title. As the first hour of the race played out, Mark Farmer led from Derek Johnston, as they had been on the grid, with Rick Parfitt in 3rd place. He closed right up, trying to undo the 20-second pit stop penalty that they would have for winning last time out over the Lamborghini and the rest of the field. In the end, though, the Bentley came back out in 5th position, 4th in terms of points, with the Lamborghini in 3rd and trying to hunt down the Aston Martins that had led the first half of the race. Problem for Stefan Hodgetts in the Toyota GT86 on the outlap, left front tyre parting company. A little worry for the Ginetta team. 55 HHC Motorsport as the car dramatically slowed midway through the second stint. In the end, seemed to be no major problem. No safety car required as they dragged Joe Osborne's McLaren out of the gravel trap. 55 Ginetta working its way past the McLaren. And in the end, a valiant charge by Phil Keane. Not enough to put the Lamborghini duo into the lead of the race where they needed to be. Nervous times for Rick Parfitt. Johnny Adam and Graham Johnston won. Derek Johnson won the race, but the GT3 championship went to Team Parker Bentley. The GT4 championship going to HHC Motorsports, the number 55 Ginetta. Handing out the trophies to our race winners. Stefan Rattel, whose SRO, Stefan Rattel organisation, organises British GT champion. The Lamborghini drivers closest to us. John Minshaw, Phil Keane on the left-hand side. John Barnes and Mark Farmer, and in the centre, Johnny Adam and Derek Johnston, your race winners, but all applauding the new GT3 champions, Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt. The Team Parker Bentley duo, the British GT champions in the GT3 class. And again, as has happened so many years in the past, the championship comes down to the very final race of the season, held in the balance. And it was tight all the way through. John Minshaw there having a quick word with Derek Johnston, the outgoing champion. Derek and Johnny Adam there alongside him, last year's championship winners in the GT3 class. And they round out their title year with a final race win of the season. Fastest lap of the race to Phil Keane. So congratulations to him. He was on lap 45 of the race, just after he'd come back out. 79 laps completed in the 2 hours. Green flag almost all the way, and time to start the celebrations. I think there might be a little more champagne flowing as well down at Team Parker's hospitality unit quite shortly. I think they were ready, just in case, to celebrate a championship. They only took the lead in the points last time out with victory at Brands Hatch, and then claiming the title here. In the end, a narrow margin, but they are the GT3 champions. Well, let's take a look at how the points ended up then. In third place, Derek Johnson and Johnny Adam fought off Liam Griffin, Sam Tordoff and John Barnes and Mark Farmer to be third in the championship. John Minshaw and Phil Keane in second place. And look how close it was. 6 points out of nearly 200. The difference between being runners-up and being champions. The 2017 British GT3 champions, Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris. In the GT4 class, it was a little more cut and dried. Team Lannon Racing's Alex Reid and David Pittard didn't score as a result with victory here. Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson, the outgoing champions, move ahead of them by 2 into second spot. But our new champions, and for the first time, Stuart Middleton and Will Tregurtha, the 2017 GT4 British GT champions. So the race winners are also the runners-up in the championship, the outgoing champions, Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson. Third place then in the number 43 Ginetta, the Century Motorsport car, Niall Murray and Jacob Mathewson. In second place, 55, the HHC Motorsport Ginetta, Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton. And your race winners, Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson. So last year's champions victorious, this year's champions finishing second in the race. If they hadn't had to battle quite so many McLarens, they might have caught the lead McLaren and maybe had a battle with that one as well. Nevertheless, that is the way it finished up. And our second place finishers appear to be on the third step of the podium. Not quite sure what's going on with that. However, oh dear, a little premature with the champagne already. Off goes Niall Murray and Jacob Mathewson. And the celebrations begin. So commiserations absolutely to Lannon Racing's David Pittard and Alex Reid. That damage and trip to the gravel trap. Didn't see what started that incident with the Century Motorsport Aston Martin, with the Academy Motorsport Aston Martin, Wilmore, Matt Nicol-Jones. But whatever it was, it ended the Lannon Racing Ginetta's race and slender hopes of a championship challenge. And that's disappointing for them, but that too, I'm afraid, sometimes is motor racing. Again, you can see our marshals down there in the orange suits. Thanks again to all of them. I know you've had a beautiful day today, but there's never a day I wish I was a cameraman, because they always get burned, fried or drowned, and so do the marshals. Let's hear from our GT4 champions. Alex Legui is with them.
As they're just grabbing their trophies. Boys, congratulations. You are the youngest pairing to win the GT4 championship. Well done.
Wow, just, yeah, sounds amazing, doesn't it? Just youngest GT4 champions ever in this championship. So honestly, I'm just ecstatic right now. Thank you so much to everybody involved at HHC Motorsport. I couldn't have done without my teammate Will, man. He's an awesome driver, hell of a teammate, and yeah, thank you very much to my sponsors. Jody, Charlie, Alan, just everybody involved at HHC Motorsport. Like, what an amazing team. I just couldn't have asked for any more this year, so awesome.
Congratulations, consistently good all the way through your year.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as Stuart said, HHC have impeccably set up the car this year. It's been so good. So I can't fault them, honestly. It's just been the best year ever.
Very, very well done and much deserved.
Well, congratulations indeed to the boys and to HHC Motorsport. As they both pointed out, certainly the car has always been in the mix. At every race, they and Lannon have been right in among the front runners. So congratulations, they claim victory in the British GT4 Championship race over the Century Motorsport pairing, last year's champions Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson, Optimum Motorsport rather, and again the McLaren drivers finishing in second spot. So what next for these boys? A step up to GT3, or will they return to defend their crown? As so often in life, in the universe and everything, a lot depends on what they can raise in terms of funding, because GT4 costs, GT3 costs a bit more. And whether they can find a bit more or not remains to be seen. Also remaining to be seen is whether Stuart Middleton or Will Tregurtha will head to the Daytona 24 Hours as the winner of the Sunoco Whelen Challenge. They're both right at the front of the field for that. And Rick Parfitt now winning the championship here in GT3. Didn't win the race, but he does have a lead over John Minshaw in points for the Sunoco 240 Challenge, which is to win a place in what is the support race for the Daytona 24 Hours. So those guys both still with an eye on heading to Daytona in February. And that then rounds out the action for the British GT Championship for 2017 here at Donington Park. GT cars being shuffled around in the pit lane as their race is over. The British GT Championship concluded here at Donington Park, but the racing for the day at the circuit and on your telly box is not yet over. So stay where you are, because we have lots more to entertain you. We've seen Ginetta's racing at the front of the GT4 field. And to get there, you can work your way up a Ginetta ladder of success. Starting before you're old enough to hold a road driving license in the Ginetta Juniors, you can then work your way up all the way into GT4 and conceivably GT3. And in the future, if you stay with Ginetta, maybe even into LMP1 machinery at the absolute zenith of the sports car tree. But in between times, you can do something that we're about to see now, which is racing in the Pro Tire Ginetta GT5 Challenge. So if we understand that GT3 cars are highly sophisticated sports cars, GT racers based on essentially